How about now? Sorry about that. Hit me a +1 if you can hear the sound. I don't know what happened, but I hope I have fixed it. I'll wait for chat to catch up. Sorry about that. Great. Fantastic. Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Let me repeat my introduction. This is CRP, and I'm speaking to you live on Friday, July 30th, 2021. This is the makeup webinar that, because of my illness, my recent illness, I had to postpone. But here we are, all made up, and so insofar as the webinars for July are concerned, you're all set. And I'm really looking forward to this one because this one's a doozy. I do believe this is the coming Sino-American War. That is the war between China and the United States. And I'm going to be discussing what I believe will be happening over the next 18 months or so. And a lot of people think that this is going to be black pilled as fuck. Well, yeah, to an extent, it will be. On the other hand, I think it might, paradoxically, long term, be a good thing. Okay? So you always have to take the bitter with the better. You always have to understand that sometimes something disastrous can happen short term, which long term is really good. Okay? So I don't want you to be totally black pilled. I want you to understand that what might happen over the next 18 months might be a catastrophe that has a happy ending. Yeah, yeah. And not like a Thai massage happy ending. I'm talking like a real long lasting happy ending, okay? Okay. So let me get started. I'm going to just close out my ugly mug so you guys don't have to see me. And let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we have to understand about what's going on between the United States and China is the so-called Thucydides trap. Thucydides was a Greek historian, and he basically said that when a rising empire clashes against the previous big kahuna, there is inevitably a war. It's called Thucydides trap because the established power does not want to cede power to this newcomer, and the newcomer wants to establish itself, and so inevitably there's conflict and there's war. Now, this concept has gained a lot of currency as of late because everybody can see how China has been growing by leaps and bounds over the last 30 years, and most especially over the last 15 years or so. Now, because of this astonishing growth, people have been saying for quite some time that there is likely to be a war between China and the United States. But as of late, a lot of the indications are that that is indeed the case. In fact, just 2 days ago, China officially declared the United States an adversarial nation. This is just one step below enemy, okay? An adversarial nation is basically a nation with which China is officially competing with and views as a potential enemy. A lot of people who don't know shit about Shinola, shit from Shinola rather, constantly dismiss diplomatic signs and diplomatic statements because they think that it's all, bullshit. It's all just words and verbiage that goes nowhere. This is a mistake. A lot of times in the diplomatic language that is verbose and long-winded, you see what people actually think. And you see what nations, the official policy of nations is long-term. The problem is that in the United States especially, there is no coherent national policy insofar as foreign policy is concerned. Not since the end of the Cold War. The United States, through the second half of the George H.W. Bush administration, all of the Clinton administration, the George W. Bush administration, the Obama administration, the Trump administration, and now the Biden administration, it has not had a coherent foreign policy because it doesn't know where to go. And so each administration not only changes directions, but sometimes within one administrative period, the government, the U.S. Executive changes direction, depending on who is in charge of the State Department and who has the ear of the sitting president. American foreign policy has been a disaster over the last 30 years, and the United States has nobody to blame but themselves, okay? The war that's coming could have been avoided if the United States had been a little more shrewd, a little smarter and tougher, and not thrown away so much of its industrial base to China, okay? But, spilt milk, water under the bridge. Let's move on. Insofar as the Thucydides trap is concerned, the notion is that the rising power is challenging the established power, and eventually there will come a tipping point whereby open warfare is declared. Now, the last time that this happened was when the United States essentially overtook Great Britain. But you see, that happened, for all intents and purposes, during the course of the Second World War, where Britain and the United States had a common enemy. At the start of the war, Britain was the senior partner, and the United States was the junior partner. At the end of the Second World War, the positions had been reversed, and that's why there was no confrontation between Britain and the United States. By the time Britain realized that it was second banana, it was too late. It had problems of its own. It didn't care about challenging the United States and realized that it couldn't in any kind of practical sense. And so that was that. That was the end of that switchover between one great power and another. But insofar as China and the United States is concerned, well, there's no war to distract either side. And so they look at each other and they start seeing an enemy. That's what's going on. And both sides look at the other side as a potential enemy. And a lot of times when you think of somebody as a potential enemy, they become the enemy, even when there isn't really any intention for them to become enemies. I'm not going to go into the specifics because it would be a whole other webinar, but there are a lot of moments whereby the United States and China both could have somehow figured out a way to have a smooth, not transition, but a smooth relationship whereby the United States acknowledged China's primacy in Asia and slowly backed off and let China have its sphere of influence, its sphere of dominance. But the United States didn't do that. On the other hand, China, especially over the last 5 years, has behaved more and more truculently, would be the best word. Truculently, insecurely, and clamping down more and more. And I'll explain why in just a moment. But first, let's look at the America side for the motivations for a coming war. Because you always have to understand, see, a war doesn't happen just because. There has to be good motivation. And before I launch into it, give me a quick +1 to make sure that you all can hear me properly and that everything's good insofar as audio-visual is concerned. Yeah, I'll wait for you guys to catch up as I continue talking. Anyway, the American side motivation. As I've said repeatedly, you have to understand that the Biden White House is controlled by 4 different groups. The 4 different factions are the neocons, the neoliberals, that is Team Obama, okay? When I talk about neoliberals, think of Team Obama. The Biden family and the progressives. Those are the 4 groups. Neocons, neolibs / Team Obama, Biden family, and the progressives. Now, the neocons, they're basically the military-industrial complex, and they want war. They want war very badly, and they've got a hard-on, I mean, because they feel that they got blue-balled during the whole Trump administration. They didn't get their fucking war, and they're pissed off about it, and they want a fucking war. They want a war now, goddammit. They want those tasty defense contracts. They want all that sweet, sweet money from Raytheon and all the rest of it, okay? And so these fuckers, the neocons, who are on both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and a lot of times they are pushing the agenda of Saudi Arabia and Israel, both of whom benefit from the agenda of chaos that is the United States foreign policy. Well, they're all pushing for a war, and their rationale is to safeguard America. The real rationale is to make money or safeguard Saudi Arabia and Israel. See? You have to understand these people. They just want to make fucking money. And they talk about patriotism and they wave around the flag. And it's all bullshit because all they want to do is just make money off the defense contracts. That's all that they're about. Either make money from the defense contracts or they themselves are paid lobbyists from the defense agencies. Okay. I heard somebody ask, wonder out loud on Twitter, whether outright graft or lobbying was more corrupt. And that's a good fucking question. Because at least a guy who's openly corrupt and taking, fistfuls of money under the table, he knows that he's doing wrong. Whereas the fucking lobbyists think that they're doing the right thing. So, yeah, it's a hard question to answer. But in my books, I think lobbyists are worse than flat out corrupt people. Anyway, the neocons, they want to safeguard America. Bullshit. They want to make money. A-okay. And they want a war. The neoliberals, why? That's Team Obama. Why do they want a war? Well, you got to understand that these fuckers, they're nuts, and they think that this will kickstart the American economy. People like Paul Krugman, who's the grand poobah of the economists on this side, on this particular faction, these fuckers believe that America got out of the Great Depression by way of the Second World War. And so they think that a war, a big war, would be good for the American economy. They are high on their own fucking farts. I mean, these guys are fucking morons because they don't understand history. They don't understand that a lot of the Great Depression was caused by government intervention. And they refuse to understand that the post-war boom was not because of the war, but because of the 1948 recession, which Harry Truman was forced to solve by way of rescinding a lot of the New Deal programs that had held back American industry and which kickstarted the rest of the United States, plus the fact that Europe, the advanced economy, apart from the United States, had been totally annihilated and destroyed by the Second World War. America's economy was the only economy left standing and totally intact after the calamity of the Second World War. Russia, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Japan, China, all of the industrial foci across the globe were destroyed in World War II, except America. So, of course, America was going to have a huge post-war boom. Okay, but these fuckers, they don't seem to understand history. They're fucking morons as far as I'm concerned. I've had run-ins with Paul Krugman, as some of you might know, back in the day when I wrote economic commentary on my own blog. Okay, these guys, they're fucking crazy, and they are begging for a big war, and they have convinced everybody that a big war would help America's economy. So that's one rationale. Another rationale is that these fuckers, the neoliberal Team Obama people, they want to impose economic imperialism on the holdouts, specifically Russia and China. See, they hate the fact that these two economies, which are very, very large, don't kid yourself, the Russian and Chinese economy are exceptionally large. China's economy is going to be the largest in the world. Combined with Russia, it would be substantially larger than any other economy on the planet. And Russia and China are inexorably going into each other's arms and becoming each other's best friends. They're each other's best friends. And this will come into play in a little bit. They have said, both of them, that the other is their priority partner. To make you understand, if you're an American, this is the same kind of relationship that the United States has with Great Britain, or even more to the point, the kind of relationship the United States has with Israel, the kind of relationship the United States has with Saudi Arabia. It's beyond merely that they are friends. China and Russia might not claim outright that they are allies, but they are in negotiations to have a pact of alliance that will be signed in 2026, when the current in 2025 rather, when the current Sino-Russian friendship treaty expires. This friendship treaty was signed in 2001. It lasted 20 years. It ended this year. And they renewed it only for 5 years, not because they are no longer friends, but because they have become even closer friends. And what they want to do, and I messed up. It is indeed 2026. In 2026, when this current friendship treaty expires, that is when they will sign a formal treaty of alliance. This is incredibly important. Okay, you have to understand how important it is. Russia and China right now are each other's best friends. A lot of people who don't know any better say that China and Russia have all kinds of border issues. They don't. They solved all their border issues back in the 90s. Okay? They have solved these problems going on 20 years. Russia and China today do not have any problem on their border. In fact, because of this fact, that's why the Russians were able to mobilize 120,000 troops in 72 hours back in April, when the Ukrainians challenged them. See, the Russians and the Chinese, since they don't have any border problems, they have freed up all kinds of troops. I'm talking in the six-figure troops, because they do not fear invasion from the other, because they have become friends. Because all the piddly little bullshit that divided them before has been ironed out over the decades. And now, with America and Europe constantly going after Russia, Russia decided to throw its lot in with China, and China welcomed it with open arms. They are allies. And they are not down with a neoliberal economic paradigm. A neoliberal economic paradigm that is essentially economic imperialism of the US imposing its will on the rest of the world. And the neoliberals hate the fact that Russia and China are outside of their grasp. And they've constantly threatened Russia and China, but Russia especially, with sanctions, with cutting them out of SWIFT, which is extremely important. It's a lifeline of global banking. And because of it, China has made other arrangements. The latest sanctions that the United States imposed on Russia, the Russians didn't even notice it. They didn't care. I mean, they cared in the sense of having this shit again, but it didn't affect them because they've had so many sanctions over the years that they've built up a resistance, an immunity. They know how to work around them or to ignore them altogether. It no longer affects Russia. When you keep using a stick on somebody until they build up defenses against it, then your stick ceases to have any effectiveness now, doesn't it? And the other people who got hit by your stick before, when you raise your arm to hit them with the stick, they say like, fuck you, go ahead, it's not going to hurt me. And it doesn't. That's what's happened with Russia. And it drives the neoliberals crazy because they are imperialists. They want to control other people, other countries. They certainly want to control Russia and all its natural resources. They certainly want to control China and get China to open up its consumer market so they can sell goods to China. That's what's going on with the neoliberals. And on top of that, there's the issue of helping the Democrats with the 2022 midterm elections, which they already know they're going to lose. And I'm going to discuss that again in just a little bit. Now, Team Biden wants war because it'll distract from the graft that they are involved in or have been involved in. You have to understand the amount of political capital that they've expended to protect Hunter Biden and to protect all the other Biden family grafts that are going on, all their little schemes, all their little corruptions. There are a bunch going on because they're a bunch of fucking brothers, you know. Well, there are two brothers, two Biden brothers, but a whole bunch of cousins, and all these fucking people are on the take. It's not just Hunter Biden. He's the most egregious one. But they're all on the take. As Hunter Biden's emails say, everybody in the family has to kick back 10% to the, quote, old man. Who the fuck you think that was? They all kick back 10% to Biden. How the fuck you figure that he has that big house out in Delaware and all those fancy sports cars and shit on the salary of a senator and a VP? Fuck you. I'm sorry, man, but what was he earning as a VP? Like $350,000, $400,000 a year after tax? That was roughly half that amount. No fucking way can you afford a house that big and that many fucking sports cars on a $250,000 a year salary. Fuck you. Okay? So these fuckers, man, they have all these grafts and they spent a lot of capital to hide Hunter Biden. And so they realize that the next big graft scandal that breaks, it'll be too much. And the press, prostitutes that they are, suck-ups, cocksuckers that they are, cum-chugging losers that they are, it'll be too much. And they'll have to start reporting it, and that can really hurt the Biden family, especially as Joe Biden is clearly deteriorating. And so there's that issue. That's why one of the reasons they want war. Another reason is they want to erase the illegitimacy, because as you see with the Maricopa County stuff that's coming out, it's becoming increasingly clear that there was wide-scale corruption in the 2020 election. Now, is Donald Trump going to be swept back into office in August or September? Are you fucking high? I mean, what the fuck are you smoking? Fuck no, that's not going to happen. Even if it came out with videotapes and confessions and documentations that the election of 2020 was completely crooked, the worst that can happen is that Joe Biden is forced to resign and Kamala Harris takes over, or perhaps Nancy Pelosi takes over. That's the worst that can happen. Donald Trump being swept back into office, grow up. Don't be a fucking little retard bitch. Come on, I mean, serious. Because whenever I hear that kind of talk, I just want to slap somebody. Because that's just stupid talk. That's just somebody who doesn't know the law and doesn't know political reality. Worst case scenario, both Biden and Harris are forced to resign. Nancy Pelosi, as the Speaker of the House, and the next in line becomes president for temporary president, and there is a new election, presidential election in 2022. That's the worst case scenario. Trump going back, that's not going to happen. Anybody who says so is an idiot. I just take my word for it. I mean, it's so obvious, okay, that if anybody says otherwise, you have my permission to say you're a fucking idiot and just walk away from the guy because he's a fucking idiot. Simple as that. Okay. So, Team Biden wants a war to erase the illegitimacy of their election because more and more evidence is popping up, and the evidence is coming from Arizona, and it'll come out in Georgia. Do you know why? It's very easy. People talk. If two people know a secret, it's no secret at all. Eventually, somebody is going to tell. That's the way of human nature. That's why the whole, Kennedy assassination conspiracy, I've always known it's bullshit. Why? Because nobody talked. Simple as that. It's as simple as that. It's not complicated. I mean, fuck it. Deep throat, okay? Deep throat during the Watergate scandal. Bob Woodward kept his fucking mouth shut for 30, 40 years. And finally, the actual guy whose name slips my mind right now, he's the one who outed himself because people need to talk. People need to show off that they did something cool. People need the credit, the glory. And so, yeah, eventually the illegitimacy of the elections in Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, it's all going to come out. And so a war would erase or distract from this legitimacy issue. And finally, right now, the Democrats know that they're going to lose in 2022, and they're going to lose huge. And they know that even with the kind of corruption going on in the electoral, in the election process, even with that grotesque corruption going on, they're not going to be able to hold back the Republicans. Democrats are disgusted by the Biden administration. They hate them, okay? Because of all the bullshit, the lies, the contradictions, the lockdown bullshit, the vaccine bullshit, all this bullshit that's coming out of Team Biden is just so fucking much. And Team Biden, they realize this. So they know that they have to have a big fucking distraction. And what's better than a big fucking war to distract people? Fuck yeah. Rally around the flag. Oh, yeah, I'm corrupt. But hey, America number one, we got to fight those fucking chinks. Let's go and fight those fuckers. Yeah? Or I don't know if they're calling chinks. Okay, when push comes to shove, I don't know that. But they are going to come up with some nice little epithet for the Chinese to rally people around to go after the Chinese and go to war. It's inevitable. Okay? So they need this, Team Biden. Now, the progressives, they'll go along with a war too. You would think that the progressives are anti-war. No. The progressives are in favor of getting into power. You got to understand the progressives' goal. Their goal is to turn America into a totalitarian state where they're in control. They have a totalitarian agenda. Never forget that. The whole critical race theory, all this bullshit, they are communists. They've only replaced the issue of class struggle with racial struggle, but they are the same fucking thing. They are communists, and they are hell-bent for leather on taking over American power. And so they are willing to go along with a war because they figure it's going to be a big bargaining chip for their agenda, that they'll be able to get a lot of shit that they want. And all that shit that they want is going to hurt America, like the Green New Deal. The purpose of the Green New Deal is not to prevent climate change or some shit like that. No. The whole point of the Green New Deal is to bankrupt America, to destroy America, because they want to destroy it to make it so miserable that they're able to sweep in and take over. That's their agenda, okay? So a war, in a very real sense, plays into this agenda, because if there's a war and the America loses, or there's a war and there's a lot of discontent and drama back home on the home front, it benefits them. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And also a big war would distract people from recognizing their totalitarian agenda. There are a lot of leftists who are beginning to understand this. I mean, I'm talking blue-haired fucking, leftists who are starting to realize, hey, these progressives, man, they are not leftists. They're totalitarian. These fuckers want to take over America and turn it into some sort of dictatorship. They're realizing it, finally, It's pretty fucking funny when these fucking hardcore leftists start to realize this. There are some smarter leftists like Matt Taibbi and Glenn Greenwald who realized this a long fucking time ago. They realized it because of the whole free speech issue. But a lot of other leftists are coming to that conclusion. A war would distract them. Okay? So this is a good thing for progressives. Now, that's the American side's motivation. What about the Chinese sides? Well, the Communist Party of China, or the Chinese Communist Party, because nowadays, all of a sudden, it's racist to call them the CCP, and you have to call them the CPC. What bullshit, but fuck off, cocksuckers. But anyway, the Chinese Communist Party, they see their control slipping as China's economy weakens. Because you have to understand something. See, the growth in China's economy between roughly 2000 and 2012, roughly, up until the global financial crisis and the immediate after effects, right? It was unprecedented. These fuckers were growing at a pace of, over 10% a year. Incredible growth. I mean, growing like gangbusters, right? And you could argue that a lot of the growth was bullshit. A lot of the construction is shoddy, a lot of this and that. But, give the devil his due. Let's be generous. Between 1995 and 2015, China grew by leaps and bounds. But that growth started to slow in the after effects of the 2008 global financial crisis. And it really started hitting China in 2012, 2015. And so what did the CCP do? They started cracking down. There's also another issue. The CCP, before Xi Jinping, was run by weaker leaders. They were old men without that much piss and vinegar who just wanted things to just trundle along, okay? They just wanted to maintain the Chinese Communist Party's control and prerogatives, but sort of like get out of the way of the Chinese people as they made a shit ton of money. That was basically their motivation. What happened with Xi is that President Xi is an authoritarian. He's a Stalinist. As simple as that. If you think of Xi and Stalin, you're pretty much on the right track. He's a totalitarian, okay? He has multiple ambitions. One of the ambitions he has is to ethnically cleanse all of China and have Han Chinese be the dominant race across all of China. And that means wiping out all the Uyghurs, all the smaller peoples within China's border. That even includes the Russian Chinese that are over there in the north of China by the Mongol border. There are indeed ethnically Russian Chinese who speak Chinese. It's really fucking weird, okay? And they want to ethnically cleanse them, but they've come to an agreement with the Russians of basically shipping them back to across the border to Russia. Because, of course, Vladimir Putin's ambition is to have all Russians be within Russia's borders, okay? And so that ties in neatly with China's motivation, so all good with the Russians, right? But other non-Han people, like the Uyghurs, like the Tibetans and so forth, they're going to get wiped out. The Chinese, they're already decided that they're going to pick the next Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is outside of China. Once he dies, which is inevitable, well, the Dalai Lama is picked by the other, Tibetan monks or whatever the fuck, right? The Chinese government has already figured out how to short circuit that process, and the next Dalai Lama is going to be somebody that they pick, controlled by them. He's going to be their puppet. Yeah, and that's the way it's going to be, And so, okay, so the Chinese, their motivation is to have China be ethnically Han, okay? And for various historical reasons, that's pretty funny because the fucking Han are not actually the true Chinese, but that's a long story and that's for some other time. Now, they want China to be ethnically cleansed and be only Han Chinese, and they also want Taiwan. Taiwan is an itch that they cannot stop scratching. At the first meeting between Henry Kissinger and Zhou Enlai in 1971, when they were laying the groundwork for Nixon's visit to China, the first thing they talked about was Taiwan. Taiwan has been an itch that China cannot stop scratching. And they want China more than anything. Because for them, Taiwan is basically almost an insult. Taiwan's success, their actual genuine Chinese culture, and the freedom that Taiwanese enjoy on the island of Taiwan is, for all intents and purposes, a bitch slap to the face of the CCP. See, okay, because first of all, Taiwan, their per capita GDP is like 5 or 6 times what it is in China. Okay, they are economically far more successful. The Taiwanese, when the nationalists lost the Civil War in 1949, they took with them all of the cultural artifacts that they possibly could carry of China, and they took them to Taiwan. And thank God that they did, because the fucking Chinese communists, fucking savages that they are, because they are. Communists are always cultural savages because they are low-class people who resent upper-class people with some degree of sophistication and education. And so they destroyed so much Chinese culture. Had it not been for Taiwan taking all of these cultural artifacts with them, the nationalists taking all the cultural artifacts with them to Taiwan, all those cultural artifacts would have been lost and destroyed. Yeah, it would have been a fucking tragedy, a cultural genocide, because that's the way these fucking communists are. Never forget that. Communists are pieces of shit. You meet a communist, just put them up against a wall and be done with it, okay? Because those fuckers, man, they want to destroy not just you, not just your kids and your family, but your civilization and your history. That's the way they are. They are pieces of garbage. Anyway, so Taiwan's success drives them nuts. The fact that they are the cultural repository of the true Chinese culture drives them nuts. The fact that they are free, that really drives them nuts, because it's a direct challenge to the CCP. The existence of Taiwan says to ordinary Chinese people, hey, there is a better way than the Chinese Communist Party. There is a much better way. And it is nationalist and capitalist, like we're doing in Taiwan. Okay? And so that just drives them nuts. Okay, now another motivation for the Chinese is face. You have to understand that the Chinese are all about face. Face is the opinion of others about you. Now, of course, like a guy like me, for instance, I could give a rat's ass what somebody else thinks of me. I could give a shit. I just do not care. But the Chinese are the exact opposite. They care deeply. And also, what I've noticed too, and I don't know how this is going to sound, if it's going to sound like an arrogant bastard or whatever, but fuck it, I'll say it anyway because it's true. See, I was raised an aristocrat. I think with an aristocratic mentality, they'll do whatever the fuck I want. And if somebody doesn't like it, they can fuck off. But see, the CCP, they're arrivistes. They are social climbers. Social climbers always care about what somebody else thinks. They always do, because, you see, they're social climbers. They want the approval of other people. A man who's raised as an aristocrat or raised as somebody of the upper class and knows for sure that he's upper class, even if he doesn't have a pot to piss in terms of money, but he has that mentality of, I come from a long and distinguished line. I'm not some nobody fucking here, right? And, therefore, I don't need other people's approval. I need the approval of my forefathers going back generations, not the appreciation of some fucking losers here, right? Well, it's always going to be a different mentality. The Chinese, the communist Chinese, are extremely aware of face, okay? And they very, very badly, because of this, they want to supplant America as the global hegemon. They need it for their sense of dignity. I'm talking the CCP, not necessarily the Chinese, the CCP, okay? Now, there's something else going on, which is key, which is timing. The Communist Chinese Party sees America's internal chaos. So they think, not incorrectly, by the way, that now would be the perfect time to outright beat the United States in a war and win huge face. They see that right now America is weak, divided. This analysis that I gave you of America's various factions in the Biden White House, I mean, I'd like to think of myself as pretty smart, but the fucking Chinese, they're not dumb either. They probably figured out this exact same thing or something very analogous to it back in the Forbidden City. They must have a very clear sense of all the different factions going on within the White House, the Biden White House. And they realize that because of this internal chaos and because of the November 2022 election and the chaos that might be, it might be smart to go to war now. Before that, or in that period of time, go to war now that America is in chaos. See, they're not fucking stupid. Okay, so they see that this might be the best time. Finally, they view a war with Taiwan, or a war with America, let me phrase it, a war with America because of Taiwan. They see it as a distraction, a very welcome distraction. Because by capturing Taiwan and beating the United States, it would distract the Chinese people from the softening economy and the rising totalitarianism. They could be able to say, look at us, look at the Chinese Communist Party. We gave you progress, and now we've given you global hegemony. We are the global hegemon, the Chinese people, as embodied by the Chinese Communist Party. We are number one, China number one. And that's a powerful, powerful thing. See, you can have a country that's in the economic doldrums, but if they feel that they just won a war and that they're on top of the world, dude, that adds a lot. That adds a hell of a lot. Okay. A win in a war with the United States would cement the Chinese Communist Party's hold on the Chinese people for at least a generation. Okay. And so the Chinese Communist Party realized that a decisive win, a full on, no holds bar war with the Americans, just going full fucking, just full fucking force, force 10, motherfucker, dial it up to 11, go all the fucking way, beat the Americans. I mean, like decisively in Asia, dude, the CCP would be in the driver's seat in China for 20 years. No, without breaking a sweat. See? And it would even help the domestic Chinese economy by giving it a huge psychological boost. Because you see, if you win a war, even if your economy is in the doldrums, people feel on top of the world. And the economy, often as not, depends on people's collective feeling, the zeitgeist of the people. If the people feel that they're winning, then they invest more, they spend more, the economy just gets a boost. Even if all the underlying factors in the economy are only so-so, they do really fucking well. Okay, let me go real quick to see if you guys are listening to me. Give me a +1. As usual, I'm worried about whether the sound went out because I've been ranting and raving for quite a while. And I'm seeing here in the comment section that everything's copacetic. So, yeah. But before I go to the next slide, I just want to make sure that everything's copacetic with you guys. So hit me with a +1, please. I'm waiting for chat to catch up. So, you guys there? All right. Okay, so this is slide number 1, and we're done with it. Slide number 2, the timeline of the war. See, the Chinese have priorities. Now, this is going to sound fucking absurd, but it's true. And I've talked to a number of people and listened to a number of YouTubers who've lived in China and whatnot. But for the Chinese, the Winter Olympics of 2022 is a huge fucking deal. I'm not kidding. The Chinese view it as a huge deal, man. I think it's stupid, personally. It's just a fucking annoying more than anything else. I mean, it's 2 weeks of a bunch of people skating and skiing. Big fucking deal. But for the Chinese, it's a priority. They will not go to war before February 2022. They need the Olympics as a show to the world of China's civility. And again, this goes to the insecurity of the social climber, the need to save face. They need to show the world that they are civilized and they're going to do the Olympics. And, if I'm an athlete in the Winter Olympics of 2022 in China, dude, I know that they're going to treat me unbelievably well. Okay. It's going to be like heaven. Even if I lose, even if I come in dead last, even if I'm the Jamaican bobsledding team, I'm a member of the Jamaican bobsledding team and I'm black. Okay. And the Chinese famously are racist and hate black people. Even me, a black Jamaican bobsledder, I'm going to be treated like a fucking king in China during that Winter Olympics because they want to show the world that they're civilized. I have a hunch. That the Communist Party will do something to force the Americans to withdraw from the Chinese games and make America lose face. Now, the Americans won't see it as losing face because the Americans' concept of dignity and honor is completely different from the Chinese. But it doesn't matter. From the CCP's point of view, they want America to lose face for the Chinese people and for the rest of the Asian peoples who have a similar conception of honor and face. And so that's why I do believe the CCP will do whatever it takes. They will irritate America and do stuff to make America withdraw from those Olympics. Okay? But China will not go to war before those Olympics. Because, and I know how stupid it sounds. I mean, you're going to postpone a fucking invasion of a fucking island that has been irritating you for decades and go to war with the biggest hegemon on the planet, you know, the biggest hegemon in world history, because that's what the United States is. Let's not kid ourselves. You're going to go to fucking war and you're going to postpone that fucking war because of some fucking Olympics? Yep. That's exactly what they're going to do. Okay? Because they need it. They need it psychologically. Okay? Because you got to keep in mind, you know, people, leaders, they're people. Okay? I remember. And leaders, no matter how highfalutin, they always have a psychological component, a personal, irrational component to their decision-making process. For the Chinese, this is one of them. The Winter fucking Olympics. Insane as that may sound. Okay, so those are China's priorities. They want to get through the 2022 Olympics. America's priorities. Oh, I forgot. I should have written this down here. China's other priority was locking in Russia because they need Russia's military technology, and they locked in Russia. The past 6 months, that's clear. They have locked in Russia. Russia is going to supply them with what they need most of all, which are hypersonic weapons. The hypersonic weapons that Russia has developed, don't kid yourselves, those are game changers. And people say, oh, they're just cruise missiles that go a little bit faster. No, see, they're unbeatable. See, hypersonic weapons, even when they are not carrying explosives, even if their warhead were it not an explosive, but just, you know, the same amount of mass, but like in metal, like an iron or lead or something like that, something completely inert. Well, these hypersonic weapons are traveling so fast, between 5 and 7 times the speed of sound, that even if they are completely inert and the bomb actually doesn't go off, just the force of impact at that speed will destroy a nuclear aircraft carrier. USS Nimitz class, USS Gerald Ford class, it will destroy it. Okay? And that's a fact. And I'll get to the hypersonic weapons in a second. But the fact that the Chinese have come to an arrangement with Russia, and the fact is that the Chinese will use Russian military weapons. It will not be fired by a Russian, but it will be fired by the Chinese against America. That is a huge fucking deal. And we'll get to that in just a moment. Okay, so that China has everything locked up to go to war with Taiwan. I mean, fuck it. You know, in China, they've actually built a replica of the Taiwanese presidential palace, and they've staged commando raids on it to prepare for the war. I mean, dude, these fuckers are ready. Okay. The trigger, the last hurdle is getting through the 2022 Olympics. After that, game on, motherfucker. Now, America's priorities. Well, the Biden White House knows that they will lose huge in November. So any war with China has to be before then. An all-out war will distract from any electoral shenanigans, just like the COVID distracted in 2020. And that's their rationale. America goes to war, all-out war. I mean, a real fucking war. None of this proxy shit, and none of this United States going up against the tiddlywinks, you know, third tier or fifth tier fucking country like fucking Iraq or some shit like that. No. Here we're going up against the best of the best, the varsity squad, motherfucker. Yeah? Okay. See, that kind of a war, that is going to dominate everything. Okay? And so under cover of that war, all kinds of electoral bullshit will happen. After all, the war is going to be happening in China or Taiwan, far away from America's shores. So it'll distract everybody, and they'll be able to do all kinds of shenanigans, and they will. See, that's the thing, because they know that they're going to lose. They know they're going to lose huge, so they need a distraction. This is straight out of the Argentine dictator Alberto Galtieri. Alberto, I think his name is. I'm not sure. General Galtieri, during the Falklands War, as he called them, the Malvinas, he was the dictator of Argentina in the early 80s, and his situation was falling apart. And so what do? He invaded fucking the Falklands, you know, a bunch of islands where there are 10 times more sheep than people on the ass end of the world, on the other side of the globe, insofar as the British were concerned, right? And he never figured that Maggie Thatcher would get on a boat and fucking go there and fucking take him back. But she did, you know? But anyway, the Galtieri playbook, going to war to distract from domestic problems. It's as old as the hills. That's what Biden's administration is going to do. They're going to go for it before November 2020. Excuse me. I mean, November 2022. So therefore, the war is going to happen between March and November of 2022. August, June, August, that sounds about right. You know, the summer of 2022. Okay? If it hasn't happened by November 2022, it's not going to happen. Okay? They will have been able to avoid it. So you'll know exactly when I'm wrong. When they hit the election and Biden loses everything, then there's no war. Because something else is going on, something else at play. The Chinese lost their nerve, the Americans lost their nerve, who knows what, but no war. Okay? That's when you'll know that I'm wrong. If on election day of 2022 there's no war over China, then it didn't happen, and it's not going to happen. The Taiwanese situation will be resolved some other way, or never resolved, or perhaps a later war. But okay. Now, the battle space of a war between the U.S. and China. By the way, honestly, I mean, let me just put the odds here. I believe that the odds of a war before November of 2022 are 80%. I'm that confident of it. Okay? If I had to bet money, I would bet 80% of my net worth. Okay? And that's how you always know how confident you are in a bet. If the money is even, I'll get 1 for 1. And if I lose it all. I would bet 60%, 65% of my net worth. I mean, putting myself in that shoe of like, really, okay, what's the real number? How much am I willing to lose on this bet? And what I think are the odds of coming out ahead? Yes, 65%. Those are the odds. If I had to bet a percentage of my net worth on this war, 65% before November of 2022. That's how confident I am. That is a 2 in 3 chance that this happens. Yes, that's what I think are the odds. Okay? Okay, so the battle space of the war. The watchword of this battle space will be tempo. Tempo, tempo, tempo. You have to understand something. And one of the things that the neoliberals, Paul Krugman and Cass Sunstein, the whole Team Obama crowd, they don't understand. They don't understand that war today is not like war in 1940, where shit happens, you have battles, and then slowly you regroup and you arm together a bunch of more people and you go on another offensive. No. See, in the wars today, the time it takes for weapon systems to be built, to be assembled and deployed, really, is so long and so convoluted and complicated, especially because of how the Americans have set up their weapons procurement system, whereby in order to get parts made in every fucking district, or let me phrase that, in order to put money in the district of every single congressman, the F-35 has parts made in every single congressional district without exception. Okay. I heard something weird. Hit me with a +1 if you guys hear me properly. Okay. Something seems to have happened here, and I got some like little beep in my ear, and I don't know if it's like the thing isn't working or what. I'll wait for you guys to catch up. Hit me with a +1 if you hear everything properly, because I'm not sure if I'm talking into thin air. Hello? Hello? Yeah, there was a beep. Yeah. Okay. Oh, we're +1. Okay, great. Okay. So as I was saying, I was like ranting, but let me get back on my thing. See, the F-35 has components made in every single congressional district. That was so that every congressman would have an incentive to vote for the F-35 program. I mean, really sneaky shit, right? Now, because of this, because there are components of the F-35 in every single fucking congressional district, putting all those fucking pieces together takes a long fucking time. Just moving it around, man. I mean, it just takes time. And so when you're in a war, you don't have that amount of time. Every single major weapon system, every weapon system that actually matters, Takes a long fucking time to build. We're talking six to 12 months. Okay. I mean, Liberty ships in World War II, those fuckers were being cranked out in something like 3 weeks each. I mean, they were getting cranked out like a fucking son of a gun, right? Or faster, even. I think 10 days or some shit like that. Okay. I mean, they were cranking them out like there was no fucking tomorrow, right? But today, that is not the case. Today, weapon systems take a long fucking time. The war will be over before any other weapons system is manufactured, before even replacement copies for what's destroyed in battle are made, are manufactured. You have to understand the battle tempo and the complexity of current weapons is so enormous. I mean, it's such a fast tempo in terms of destruction and annihilation of weaponry. Do keep in mind, in World War II, it was difficult to fight in nighttime, extremely difficult. And they didn't want to because they didn't see anything, because they didn't have any fucking night vision goggles. They didn't have radar. Today, night, day, it doesn't matter. War is 24/7, around the clock. In fact, a lot of times you want it to be at night, right? Because of cover of darkness and all the rest of it. The whole thing is going on 24/7. That battle tempo, that speed of battle is so tremendous. And if you have an enemy like the Chinese that is going to go whole hog and they are going to go after everything, they're not going to hesitate, not for a second. I mean, shit, if they're willing to destroy their own fucking culture, do you think that they're going to hesitate to blow up and go after the ships of the enemy? Fuck no, they're going to go whole hog. And that's the point. Any war is going to be so fast that it's going to be over before you have replacement parts, before you have replacement ammunition. Whatever you've got now, that's as good as it's going to get. And right now, the Chinese have more shit. They have more shit. They have more munitions, more missiles, more boats. And you can say that the Chinese boats, they have more numerical boats, but they're smaller, less capable. Fine, it doesn't matter. But in this war, in China's fucking backyard, they've got more of everything. Troops, weapons, missiles, anything you care to name, planes, everything. They have more because it's their backyard. Okay? Now, China and Russia against the United States. That's the battle space. Those two countries together, as I explained before. But the theater is going to be Asia, not Europe, not the Middle East. And let me explain why. See, the Europeans have no interest in going to war with Russia/China. Russia/China. And for purposes of this conversation, we can talk about, whenever I talk about going to war with China, Russia is going to be right there, feeding the Chinese weapons. Not necessarily troops. The Chinese don't need the troops. They got them. And not with boats. The Chinese obviously have more boats. But with those missiles, the advanced anti-aircraft systems, and all that kind of good tech that the Russians have been developing for decades, okay? You got to understand that the Russians, starting in 1950, actually 1948, they started whole hog on missile defense and air cover defense. These fuckers, they have the most sophisticated systems in the world. And you think that, oh, it's the Russians. It can't be that bad. Dude, there is a reason that everybody's focused on the Russian air defense systems that deployed in Syria. There is a reason that everybody's talking about Russian hypersonic missiles. Do you know how they work? See, these Russian hypersonic missiles, you can see them. Right now, they are deployed everywhere. There are land-based on these big 18-wheelers that just park wherever they want to, dirt road, gravel, tarmac, doesn't matter. They just park them wherever they want, set them with some levelers, raise up these missiles, and fire, okay? Or off a ship. They just started testing off of ship-based hypersonic missiles, okay? Aircraft also can carry these. Fighter bomb, they need long-range bombers to do it. But a long-range bomber, it's no trick at all. And these missiles have an effective range of at least 700 kilometers. Excuse me, wrong. 700 nautical miles. Now, that number is actually important. Do you know why? That is the distance from mainland China to Subic Bay in the Philippines. Okay? 700 nautical miles covers all of the coastline around China. It covers Japan, Okinawa, Taiwan, the Philippines. All the military targets in that area are covered by these missiles. Okay, and they can be launched from a ship, as the Russians showed a few weeks ago. You ever seen these missiles launch? See, it's really fucking cool. See, the hatch opens, and these missiles get shot straight up. Okay, like about I'd say about 20 meters, about 60 feet, something like that, and they get shot up straight up, and then they start to like they as they get shot straight up, they start to pivot forward. You know, their warhead pivoting forward. I mean, like it's their warhead is sort of like slowly coming down to a sort of like a 30-degree angle, kind of, right? And then the rocket itself fires, because see, what's actually happening is that the missile is being catapulted up from the ship or from the launcher, right? It's being catapulted up, and you see foam coming out of the engine, but it's not actual. It's not that reaction that's pushing it up. It's being slingshot up, and that foam is the pre-cum before the fucking missile fires. And when it fires, it goes so fucking fast. Do you know how fast it goes? 7 kilometers per second. Do you have any idea how fast that is? For you Americans, 7 kilometers per second is roughly what, 4 or 5 miles per second? 4 or 5 miles per second. That's Mach 7, that's Mach 5 or Mach 6, something like that. 5, 6 times the speed of sound. And these missiles are designed to go high altitude, really high altitude. And when they get over their target, they don't slow down. See? No, that's the crazy part about these fuckers. They go really fucking fast, no slowing down, straight at just full acceleration. And when they get over their target, they suddenly pivot and aim straight down. They are deliberately designed to be aircraft carrier killers. The whole point of them is, rather than hit a ship from the side, they hit it from above. And there's no way to counteract it. It comes down at 5 to 7 times the speed of sound, going straight down. And what happens when a missile hits at 5 to 7 times the speed of sound, hits a carrier deck? That carrier is kaput. That carrier deck is annihilated. No plane is going to be taking off from that carrier for at least 36 months. And if the missile goes fast enough and hard enough and blows up enough, it might puncture a hole through the fucking aircraft carrier. They are designed for this. See, the Russians made these to purposely kill aircraft carriers. And the best part is that they're fairly inexpensive. And they're like $5 million, something like that. Okay. So they have a lot of these fucking things. And so the issue becomes, of course, you don't fire one of these fuckers, you fire 10. And after that, you check to see how many actually hit. And if none hit, which is an astronomically lucky occurrence, then you fling another 10. Eventually, you're going to hit. Eventually, you're going to sink these carriers. That's the point of these fucking things. And ditto with an airfield in Subic Bay. The whole point is to drill holes in the tarmac of any airfield in Subic Bay. Subic Bay is the big American base in the Philippines. This is what the Russians bring to the table for the Chinese, and the Chinese want this very badly, okay? Because they don't have anything like it. Hell, the Americans don't have anything like this. They are trying, they're starting to get on the drawing boards of shit. But on top of that, see, they don't have any motivation, because, see, the Chinese and the Russians, they don't have any aircraft carriers. Well, the Chinese are building a couple, but at this time, it's not like a determining factor, whereas the Americans have a bunch of aircraft carriers, and they are the determining factor. These are aircraft carrier killers. This is the nightmare weapon, and there's no way for the Americans to stop it, because once the missile goes, it goes so fast. Think of it. You're talking 5 nautical miles per second. And the distance between China and Subic Bay is 700 miles. Okay? That's 3,500 seconds. How much is that? It's less than an hour. Okay? In less than an hour, this hypersonic weapon can clobber you. Okay? And you think that an hour is a long time. Dude, in military terms, that's instantaneous. That's light speed in military terms. That is so fast. If there is a launch of, say, 50 of these missiles at different targets, both land-based and sea-based. I mean, that is aircraft carriers. If you got 50 of these fuckers and you have only a 10% impact ratio, which is microscopic. I mean, it's really low. These fuckers are designed to hit their target, you know, 80% or more percent of the time. Okay. But say just incredible bad luck. Only 10% get through. That is 5 missiles. You killed 2 aircraft carriers and permanently disabled 3 air bases. You're fucked. Your air cover is shot to shit. You have no air cover. And America depends on air superiority. Without air superiority, it's game over for the Americans. And the Chinese know it because they've been studying this shit. Okay, so let me go back to my outline. The Chinese have been studying how America fights. They know how America fights. They've seen it in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria. They understand how the U.S. fights, and it's very simple. The Americans have a slow but massive buildup in staging areas. That is, all of these military bases that the United States has around the world, they put a whole boatload of fucking soldiers and fucking planes and logistics and whatnot. The slow, massive buildup in safe staging areas. And once they are all nice and prepped up, they stage a massive blitzkrieg. That's how America fights. The Americans have plans to disrupt American military buildup. Okay? And how do you do that? Very simple. Before the Chinese attack Taiwan, this is what they're going to do. And by the way, the Americans know this. This is not secret. Okay? The Americans are going to attack the Chinese, my mistake. The Chinese are going to attack America's forward bases in Japan, in Diego Garcia, in the Philippines, in Hawaii. Yes. Pearl Harbor. There's going to be Pearl Harbor too. And it's going to be a single coordinated surprise attack. My guess is that Hawaii is going to be hit by Russian boats with hypersonic missiles. Yeah. And it could be that the Russians, like, quote unquote, lend the boat so that they can remove their fingerprints from the actual attack, but it's going to be Russian weapons, but it's going to be Chinese strategy. Okay. So, I mean, they're allies, so it doesn't really matter. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. Let me go back a little bit. Sorry about this. China and Russia are going to go against the U.S., but it's only going to be in Asia. The Europeans have no incentive to go to war with Russia and China. No incentive whatsoever. See, the Germans now depend on Russian gas because of Nord Stream 2. The Germans also depend on Russia in terms of economic cooperation. The Germans don't want to mess with the Russians. And what Germany wants is what Europe wants. Okay? The Americans are pulling out of the Middle East. They have 2,500 troops in Iraq and 900 troops in Syria, where they are stealing Syrian oil. You know, I think that that's so scummy, by the way. I think it's so fucking scummy, but okay. Anyway, the war isn't going to happen in the Middle East. It's all going to be Asia. And any significant forces in the Middle East, the Americans are going to turn and pivot over to the Asia front, because it's just not going to be worthwhile. In that pivot, the Russians are going to roll up those 900 troops in Syria. I mean, they might just blast them to Kingdom Come, or just surround them and say, look, surrender now or we're going to kill you. And the soldiers are going to surrender, okay? Because they know that they're going to have an untenable position. The Russians have built up a huge presence in Syria, and they're not going to be hesitant to, they're not going to be shy about showing it off and applying it. And they're going to apply it to the Americans and kick the Americans out of the Middle East. The Iranians are going to be all happy about that too. The Iranians are probably going to take advantage of the chaos in Asia to take over Iraq. I mean, they already have practically, but they'll do it, it'll be even greater than before, and they'll use the opportunity to kick American soldiers out. America is going to get kicked out of the Middle East if this war breaks out in China, because America has too many enemies. Too many people hate America's guts, and hate America's guts with passion. Okay? So you have to understand, the war itself is going to be in Asia, but in Europe, nothing's going to happen. And in the Middle East, the Americans are going to get kicked out of Syria, kicked out of Iraq. If the Israelis try anything, they're going to be blasted to fucking Mars, and they know it. They know it. They know it in their bones, and that's why they're trying to make friends with the Saudis, which, well, they already are. but they're trying to very quietly make friends with the Russians because they know that Syria is no longer Syria. Syria is Syria slash Russia. And that means Syria slash Russia slash China. China is investing in Syria because of Russian desire for Chinese money to go to Syria to help Assad. He is their ally in the Middle East. And the Russians, for all their faults, they take care of their allies. And the Chinese, for all their faults, they know when they have to play nice with somebody because it helps their long-term interests. They know that they have to help Syria. Syria is backed by Russia and China. When the war happens in Asia, the Americans are going to get squeezed out. And the entire 20-year misadventure in the Middle East will have been nothing. It will have been a complete waste of time and money and people. All those people killed, Americans and civilians and all those people displaced, it will have been all for nothing. Yeah. And the Iranians are going to be sitting pretty, and Israel is going to be looking very carefully, and they are going to be tiptoeing from now on because they're going to realize that America no longer has its back because America is going to have its hands full in fucking Asia with the Chinese. And Israel, they better be fucking smart and realize that if they get pissy about it with the Americans will tell them to fuck off. And by the way, I think that in America, after this loss, and I'll explain this in a moment, I think that there is going to be serious anti-Semitism. I mean, I'm talking real anti-Semitism. The kind of like persecute Hasidic Jews in the streets and expunge Jewish people from positions of power. I think that that's definitely in the cards, as I will explain in a moment. So I think that the Israelis and Jews in general are going to go through a very, very rough period, and they better be fucking polite in this period that will be very, very different. Okay? And I'll get to that in just a moment. Now, where was I? Yeah. Before the assault happens, the Chinese attack American forward bases. They need to. They have to. In every war game that the Americans have played, that's the first thing that a Team Red leader does. As he plays the Chinese side, he goes after the American forward bases. And that's why the Chinese win every time. And this would be the colossal mistake on the Chinese part. This is the one thing that will make them lose the war in Asia. If they don't destroy those forward bases, they have to. It's the linchpin. The Chinese might, out of who knows what. I mean, all kinds of stupid decisions happen, but they must destroy those forward bases. If they don't destroy all of those forward bases, I'm talking Subic Bay, Okinawa, Diego Garcia, and whatever aircraft carrier happens to be in the combat area, they all have to be destroyed because they have to deny American air superiority. Because the Americans, if they have air superiority, eventually they win. Because they have better fighter planes, more experienced pilots, and just a larger logistics complement to their air force. They must deny American air superiority. Once they do that by destroying these these launch platforms, that's what they really are. Think of it in those terms. Once they put a giant, 10-meter wide hole in any aircraft carrier around and any tarmac in any of those bases of the places I mentioned, Okinawa, Diego Garcia, Subic Bay, and any other that I might be missing. Once they've done that, it's over. They're going to win. Once they have done that, the Chinese attack Taiwan with a massive amphibious assault. They attack it, and they got the numbers. They got the numbers, and they got the preparation. As I said before, they've been practicing storming. Their commandos have been practicing storming the Taiwanese presidential palace with an actual scale model version of it. They're going to go whole hog. And you got to keep in mind something that a lot of Americans don't understand, okay? How far is Taiwan from China? 90 fucking miles. And that number rings a bell, doesn't it? What other distance is 90 miles? Oh, yeah, Cuba. Cuba is 90 fucking miles from the U.S. Imagine that the United States wanted to invade Cuba. Imagine the United States said, fuck it, we're going to invade that fucking Cuban island because it's ours, God damn it. And imagine that, the United States had been jerking off over Cuba for decades, right? And finally, they got this huge army, they got this huge navy, they got these sweet, sweet weapons, right? And finally, America says, fuck it, we're going to invade Cuba. Do you realistically think that China or Great Britain or Russia or any other military power could realistically stop America from successfully invading Cuba? You'd have to be high. It's right the fuck there, right in front of them. You see my point? You see how this is an unwinnable war for the Americans. And more to the point, in several Pentagon war games over the last few years, America always loses. They always lose every single time. They put an aggressive leader on Team Red, right? That is the Chinese communists in this war game. And they put their best commander on as head of Team Blue. Team Red wins every time. Every fucking time. Okay? Actually, that's not true. The last war game they lost. But do you know how they lost? Do you know how the Americans won in the last war game? They cheated. They posited a bunch of drones, like 6th generation drones that don't exist. They're not even on the fucking drawing boards. And they posited a bunch of other conditions. And that's how they won. Now that's fucking telling, by the way. They had to make up weapon systems that do not exist in order to defeat the Chinese. Because they've been losing so consistently since like fucking 2010. Huh? Because, yeah, man, it's like America invading Cuba. It's right the fuck there. Okay? No way can some military power on the other side of the world defend Cuba if the United States wants to take it. If the United States really gets it into its head to invade fucking Cuba and take the fucking place over right the fuck now, nothing can stop it. It's the same fucking thing. Okay? Will there be a nuclear exchange? Well, that's the $1 million question, and I'm going to answer that later in this broadcast. Okay? But it is the $1 million question. It's the 7 billion lives question, actually. Actually, no, it's not 7 billion because we're all not going to die in a nuclear war. But, 500 million without breaking a sweat. Yeah. Well, no, maybe not that much. Maybe just a couple of 100 million. But for the Chinese communists, it wouldn't be a big deal. I mean, they've already killed 100 million of their own people. So killing a couple 100 million more, if, between American citizens and Chinese citizens, they can handle it. They've done it before. So why wouldn't they do it again? Not kidding. I'm not being facetious. The Chinese have done that. Look it up. Read the Black Book of Communism. The Black Book of Communism. That shows you all the atrocities of the communists over the decades in all the different countries. And it shows that the conservative estimate at this time by reputable historians, not crazy people who know what they're talking about, they estimate that around 100 million Chinese were killed by the Chinese Communist Party. Okay? Okay. So, there could be a nuclear war, and I'll get into that in a moment. But let me finish off the immediate results of the war. America loses. And the Chinese, America loses the war. They lose between 1 and 3 aircraft carriers. And their military bases are destroyed. Shattered, including Hawaii. Okay, the military base at Pearl Harbor, totally shattered. Okay, the American military presence in the Pacific is over. The Pacific, which used to be America's lake, no more. Now it's China's lake. They're going to own it. Okay, and you have to understand the reality. After Pearl Harbor in 1941, the Americans geared up their industrial capacity. Well, 2 things happened. Number one, the Japanese, in 1941, attacked Pearl Harbor. And it was a successful attack because it was totally by surprise, caught them totally flat-footed, but it was a failure because by chance, the aircraft carriers that had been stationed at Pearl Harbor were not there. And they had been prime targets for the Japanese surprise attack. And the fact that by pure happenstance, the Japanese did not catch those aircraft carriers, not even one of them. They were all out on maneuvers, right? By chance, okay? Because it wasn't even scheduled. I read this years ago, but I remember it was like Halsey got into his head, let's go and fucking maneuvers like 3 days before. And they took off, even though it wasn't scheduled, and they got hit. Okay, and that's part of the reason a lot of people think that FDR and the Naval High Command knew that the attack was coming, and that will never be solved as to whether they knew or not. But anyway, so there was that fact insofar as the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, and the other fact was that the war at that time was so slow, and but at the same time, building a new aircraft carrier could be done so quickly because the technology was so much less sophisticated and complex than it is today. There weren't any fucking computers. It was just fucking steel and iron and shit. Slap that shit together and you're done. You didn't need computers and software, and there was no radar. There was no all this other shit that we have today. You know, I mean, you got to understand the world of 1941. The United States got the ever-living shit kicked out of it in December 7th, 1941. The Japanese destroyed Pearl Harbor, and they also invaded the Philippines and also Midway. It was like a whole fucking nightmare. I mean, actually, I forget if they invaded Midway or not, but certainly the Philippines, they did. And they invaded it and drove MacArthur out of there, you know, a hysterical, crazy man that he was. Jesus Christ, that guy was just a fucking nut. You know, you read up on it, you know, when the attack was happening, the Japanese attack was happening on the Philippines, the guy shut himself up hysterically and just paced around ranting without delivering any orders or doing anything. The guy was a fucking loon. The guy was full of shit. He was an incompetent who somehow managed to convince everybody that he was some sort of military genius when he was just a piece of shit. But that's for another conversation. Going back to the Japanese attack in 1941, the war continued, see? But in this case, the war is going to end. And when does it end? When the Chinese have captured Taiwan. And that's the point. They are going to capture it, but they won't be able to hold it. Okay? America will lose the war. It'll lose 1, 2, 3 aircraft carriers, and it'll lose its bases, and it will get the shit kicked out of it. It will be humiliating. And the Americans will not have it in them to gear up and go to war with China again. They won't. It'll be over, especially as the objective of the Chinese is very limited, to capture Taiwan. That's their goal. They don't want the complete surrender of the United States. They don't give a shit about the United States. They want to take Taiwan, or let me phrase that, they do give a shit about the United States, but not in the sense of wanting to destroy America. They just want to be China number one and Taiwan part of China. And I don't give a fuck if you think I'm a racist for saying that. It's the truth. It's what they want, and that's the way Chinese people speak. I've dealt with Chinese. I know how they speak English. That's how they speak it. These fuckers, they care about Taiwan. That's it. They have very limited military objectives. They're not interested in capturing Okinawa. They're not interested in capturing the Philippines or any islands of the Philippines. They don't give a shit about that because they're xenophobic ethno-nationalists. They hate everybody who's not a Han Chinese. And all the Han Chinese, very fortunately for the rest of us, live in fucking China. They view China as the Middle Kingdom. They don't want anything other than what is properly theirs. They wanted Hong Kong, they got it. And they want Taiwan, they're going to get it. They're going to capture it. They're not going to win. Because the Taiwanese, they're going to fight to the death. Because in all this conversation, I have neglected the Taiwanese. You have to understand, the Taiwanese, they're not fucking dumb. They've been preparing for this shit for years. And the Taiwanese, they're going to fight to the death. Here's what's going to happen. The Taiwanese, they're going to play a scorched earth policy. They are going to dynamite and C4 everything of value on Taiwan. Okay? And even the cultural artifacts. They'll say, very sorry, but we're going to have to blow up all this shit because they are going to do scorched earth. They're going to go full-on guerrilla. They're going to head for the hills, and they are going to relentlessly campaign against the CCP, and it's going to last for decades. Decades, plural. The Taiwanese, you got to understand, they're democratic, they're very kind, they're very polite, lovely, lovely people. Every Taiwanese I've ever met is just sweet as honey. I mean, nicest fucking people imaginable compared to the fucking Chinese from mainland China. They're all low-class arrivistes. I despise them. I mean, every time I've had to deal with them, they're fucking ugh. They have no class. They have no manners. They're just savages as far as I'm concerned. And the funny thing is that they think that I'm a savage. These fuckers, they eat with their fucking fingers. I've seen them. They don't know how to use chopsticks even. I mean, at least if they use chopsticks, they didn't know how to use a knife and fork like a civilized person, fine. You know, if they use their chopsticks, fine. But I've seen them, how they hold up their little rice bowl to their mouth and just shovel it in with their fingers. They're fucking repulsive. They're just a step above a fucking, I don't know what, a savage. You know, as far, I mean, fucking barbarians. That's what the mainland Chinese are, because they killed off all the educated cultural people. That's what they did. Who the fuck you think were the 100 million Chinese dead in fucking China, communist China? The educated people, the people with culture, the people with dignity, the people that are of my social class, quite frankly. And the ones who are lucky enough to escape, they're in Taiwan. Lovely fucking people. But they know what's what. They're going to fight to the death because they know that the Chinese will kill them. See? Because the Chinese have done it before. See, that's the key issue. All the nationalists, they know what they are dealing with. So they are going to go scorched earth to deny the communist Chinese anything of value. They are going to dynamite buildings. You know, those microprocessor factories and all that shit. You can kiss all that shit goodbye. That's the first thing the Taiwanese are going to blow up. The very first thing that they're going to blow up. Before even the Chinese communists have broken through at the beachhead, they are going to blow up all those factories because they're going to want to deny the communist Chinese that material, that technology. They're going to blow it all up. And that is going to have huge implications to the global supply chain. I mean, catastrophic. Okay? Okay. So the next thing. The Taiwanese, they're going to head for the hills and they're going to fight a relentless guerrilla war. They are not going to stop because they know that if they surrender, the Chinese communists will kill them. They know it. And no assurances by the Chinese communists will make them relinquish their weapons, relinquish their position. They will fight to the last man because they know. It's not that they think. They know because it happened before. Because all the nationalists who were caught on mainland China when the communists won, they were all executed. And the Taiwanese know better than anyone that the Uyghurs are being executed in concentration camps. They're being forcibly sterilized. I mean, untold nightmares are happening to those poor people. They know it. See, when you know that your enemy is a bloodthirsty savage who's going to rape your women and children and put you into slavery or else cut you up for spare body parts, as the Chinese fucking do, are you going to surrender? Honest question. Would you surrender to such savages? No, you would not. They're not going to surrender. They're going to fight to the bitter end, to the last man. And the key issue, see, the Chinese who invade Taiwan, the soldiers believe that they're going to be liberating the Taiwanese, and it's going to take them very little time to realize that they are fighting. Number one, they're fighting against their own brothers, which they are. And number two, they're going to realize that they're fighting against their brothers who are justified in their uncompromising stance. They're going to the morale of the Chinese occupying force is going to deteriorate very, very quickly. Okay, and this might sound insane, but if you think about it, it could well be that some Chinese communist forces defect to the Taiwanese side. Because this invasion and the guerrilla war, I'm talking 2022, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and keep on rolling. The Chinese will capture Taiwan in short order. See? They'll capture it in a month, 60 days tops. They'll capture it. But conquering it, they'll have to kill every Taiwanese. That's the only way they conquer it. That's the only way. The Taiwanese will give it all up because they know the consequences of surrender. That's the bottom line. When you know the consequences of surrender, you don't surrender. I mean, let me rephrase that. When you know that surrendering will mean your annihilation, that's it. My grandmother she's German, but she was born in Chile, German-Danish, and born in Chile. and she went to the Deutsche Schule in Valparaiso, in Chile, and during the war, because she was born in 1924. And she went to the Deutsche Schule, and she was a Hitler Youth, or not Hitler Youth. The name of the Hitler Youth organization for girls was something else. I forgot the name of it, but it's the equivalent, because Hitler Youth was only boys. The girls went to a separate one, but it was the same fucking thing, the same propaganda and all that shit. She said she had a great time. That they had, went camping, sang songs, had a great time. She was a kid, but she said that during the war, a lot of her classmates, men, went to the war, went to Germany and fought, and they fought in the Western Front. And she would get letters from them, and they were all terrified of the Russians, and they all fought harder because they knew that the Russians would do horrifying things to them if they were ever captured. So they were willing to fight to the death. And the thing is, she heard stories of actual classmates of hers who were captured by the Russians. And there was this one classmate who seems to have been like this. I saw pictures of him. He was like this big fat guy, like big German, not fat, but, big, hefty German looking kid, blonde hair, blue eyes, fat cheeks, short neck, big guy. I mean, like a peasant's body, big farmer type kid, right? He was captured. They cut off his ears and his nose before they shot him. And they really did. Okay. And that is real. They really did. Okay. And just for kicks. See, the Germans on the Western Front, when they fought the Americans and the British, they knew if they surrendered, they'd be treated well. They wouldn't be shot. They wouldn't be killed. They'd be treated with some decency. And so that's why in the Western Front, the Allies had it so much easier than the Russians in the Eastern Front. And that's why, by the way, you should always, if you're an attacking army, you should always treat your enemies of war, your POWs, as gracefully as possible, because the word gets out, and the other side is more willing to surrender when they're not sure if they can win. But if they know that you're going to slice off their ears and nose and then put a bullet between their eyes just for fun, dude, they're going to fight to the bitter end. The Taiwanese, they're going to fight to the bitter end. And some Chinese, communist Chinese soldiers, People Liberation Army soldiers, they will defect. And it will be a surprisingly large number in this endless war. It won't happen right away, okay? In the first 60 days, the euphoria of winning and all that, oh no, none of that shit's going to happen. But when you hit the 4-year mark, the 8-year mark, the 12-year mark, dude, every year that passes, more soldiers are going to defect. And what will happen is that the Chinese, the People's Liberation Army of China, will have to start recycling its soldiers quicker and quicker, bringing soldiers from the mainland to Taiwan and pulling those guys back so that those guys who are in Taiwan don't start to identify with the Taiwanese. And the soldiers that they bring are going to be less capable, whereas the guerrillas in Taiwan, because of attrition, they'll be better and better soldiers, tougher and tougher people. Eventually, the Taiwanese will win that war. Eventually, they will drive out the Chinese. It'll take a long fucking time, and it'll be literally inch by inch, and it'll be decades. Long term, if the Chinese decide to go after Taiwan and capture it, paradoxically, it will be a catastrophe for them. Okay? And let's go to the medium and long-term effects of the war. China wins, but it's locked in an unwinnable forever war with Taiwan. It's unwinnable because, see, capturing land is one thing. Capturing the mind and hearts of people is very different. Okay? That's why, for instance, in 1688, when the Dutch invaded England successfully, the English, the British, are so fucking stupid. They keep insisting that they've never been invaded since 1066. That's a lie. In 1688, the Dutch successfully invaded, but convinced the dumb Brits that it was a revolution and they were brothers and they were being liberated, and they became convinced. And that's how you fucking invade. You capture the hearts and minds of the people and get them on your side. The communist Chinese will never do that with the Taiwanese. See? And so it's going to be an unwinnable forever war with Taiwan. It will be an endless drain. Trade will be decimated, and the domestic economy will be in shambles. That won't be a big deal in the first 12 months, maybe 24 months. But as this continues, especially because of the destruction of Taiwan and all of those, very important components, and the fact that nobody wants to trade with China anymore because they're all fucking scared. Because remember, China has huge trade with its neighbors in East Asia. Well, all of a sudden, it's going to be a little bit of a Pyrrhic victory. Trade is going to be decimated. It's the Chinese domestic economy is going to be in shambles. There will be some sort of crash because all the Chinese banks are fucking weak as fuck, and all the corruption and all the stupid buildings that don't fucking stand up, they start to collapse. All kinds of shit is going to happen. Okay, so China's domestic economy is going to suffer quite a bit. There will be the euphoria of victory over the Americans, the euphoria of thinking we are the global hegemon. Now we rule the roost. But the thing is, see, trade will be decimated, and all the neighboring countries, South Korea, which will be terrified of an invasion, and which, by the way, the North Koreans will probably make efforts to hey, see, maybe we might invade you, South Korea, and the South Korea will get their shit together, probably nuke up, because they're going to feel that the Americans won't protect them. And so all of a sudden, you're going to have a lot more militarized East Asia. I'm talking countries that go nuclear, that build nuclear weapons. South Korea, Japan, and crazy as it may sound, probably Vietnam. Vietnamese are still governed by the fucking Vietnam Communist Party, right? But they're kind of capitalist, but not really, but sort of. It's sort of like in between, right? But ultimately, the Vietnamese, they're nationalists. And the Vietnamese have consistently had wars with the Chinese going back centuries. I mean, fuck it. After the Americans left in 1975, their next war with the fucking Chinese, motherfucker. See? I mean, the Vietnamese have had wars for centuries with the Chinese. And the Japanese and the Koreans. I would not be surprised if the Vietnamese got in touch with the Japanese and the South Koreans and say, why don't you give us some of that sweet nuclear technology and help us out? Help a brother out here in your neighborhood, right? If they don't hand over nuclear technology to the Vietnamese, then they might come up with some sort of pact of defense of the Vietnamese with Japan's and South Korea's nuclear umbrella. Japan does not have nuclear weapons now. They can have a nuclear weapon by this afternoon. And they've got nuclear technology up the wazoo. They've got all kinds of nuclear power plants. They've got all kinds of plutonium. They can make a nuclear weapon tomorrow. Okay? I'm talking literally tomorrow. I mean, if the Japanese say, we need a nuclear weapon, I wouldn't be surprised if they could come up with one within 12 hours because they have all that technology. They've declared themselves a nuclear-free zone because of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all that shit. But if push comes to shove and China just wiped out the Americans in Asia, dude, Japanese are going to nuke up out of just, fear and self-defense. And what will happen to Japanese society? Well, it'll become militarized. And what will happen is that once a society becomes militarized, in the sense of we're going to beef up our military, all of a sudden you're going to start to have a lot more babies. It'll be a shot in the arm for China. It'll be a shot in the arm for South Korea, which also has demographic issues. You'd be surprised. When the fear of war happens, all of a sudden people start making babies. You look through history. It's a stereotype. It's a cliche. People start making babies when the fear of war happens. Okay? People stop living for themselves. It's just a weird quirk of human nature. When they feel under threat, they make babies. And feminism and women in the workforce and all that, out the fucking window, motherfucker. Yeah, that happens. It's going to happen in Japan. It's going to happen in South Korea. Their demographic issues are going to turn around incredibly quickly. I'm talking, in the next 5 to 10 years, right? They're going to arm up. And here's the key issue. Technologically and in terms of trade, everything is going to grind to a halt. You are no longer going to have that relentless progress that we've been having over the last few decades. Because you have to understand that all of this technological progress has happened because the United States has provided a global security umbrella. You see, the United States decided that it was going to rule the oceans around the world with its nuclear battle groups, nuclear aircraft carrier battle groups. Now, because of this, see, all of these countries like South Korea, like Japan, they could devote their resources to building industry instead of building weapons to defend themselves because the Americans had their back. But now with a loss like this, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, all these countries, or all these city-states in the course of Singapore, they're going to realize, holy shit, we got to look after ourselves. And all kinds of military alliances are going to form to protect all of them against China. Because China already showed itself willing to invade Taiwan. What's to say that they don't invade, say, Okinawa or South Korea, in a pincer movement? Soldiers from North Korea coming south and Chinese Navy coming from the south, North Korean soldiers coming from the north and Chinese naval amphibious assault from the south, just like they did in Taiwan. But what's to prevent that from happening? So all these countries are going to get armed to the teeth, and that's going to be at the expense of technological progress. So there isn't going to be any technological progress. All technological progress is going to be in the service of the military. And the entire societies, all these societies, they're going to gear up for war. And that's what's going to happen in all of Asia. Simple as that. Okay. And because of all this, China gets hemmed in even more than ever because nobody's going to want to trade with them. They're all going to be afraid. They're all going to be thinking to themselves, we got to watch the Chinese dragon, and we got to hem it in, and we got to make sure that they don't invade us, that they never even think about fucking with us. Ergo, we are not going to trade with them. We are going to try to build our shit internally, because if we trade with them and become dependent on them, they might fuck us over or manipulate us or try to pull some stunt on us. Fuck that, motherfucker. And so there will be a wall between these economies in China, and it will hurt China more than it will hurt the other countries. That's a fact. Okay. And yeah, like I said, China, Japan, and also South Korea, they wake up and become much more vibrant. Okay. And so all of a sudden, China has a lot more enemies, and all of these enemies are armed to the teeth, and all of them openly hate China because of what they did to Taiwan. Okay. Okay. Now, America loses. Now, this is going to be a huge psychological blow to the United States. And I cannot emphasize it. And a lot of people are going to say that we have to keep on fighting and shit like that. And people are going to realize, no, it's over. Because once the Chinese have captured Taiwan, it's over. There's no reason, And liberating Taiwan, dude, that's logistically impossible. Okay? It's simple as that. Because you got to understand, Subic Bay, Hawaii, Okinawa. I mean, Hawaii is the only one that's kind of far away. But the others, they're all within 1,000 nautical miles of China, or less, a lot less. And therefore, they are all within reach. The Americans would never be able to stage an invasion fleet. And you got to remember, when they staged the invasion fleet of France in World War II, which has been the template for every war offensive that the United States has ever done, amass forces at a staging area and then deploy in a blitzkrieg, right? Well, Dover, how many miles is it from the French coast? 20? I mean, it's really fucking close. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump, okay? I mean, when they evacuated Dunkirk, they were doing it in fucking, like fishing boat. I mean, pleasure boats for crying out loud. That's how close the fucking continent is to the British Isles. But Taiwan, look at a fucking map. There's nothing close to fucking Taiwan except the Philippines. And the Philippines, the Chinese, if the Americans started staging an invasion fleet in the Philippines, the Chinese would simply attack. Fucking A, and they'd succeed. And there's nothing that could be done. They bomb the ever-living fuck out of the Philippines, not just with hypersonic weapons, but just with regular old bombs. They level the fucking Philippines. The Americans would never be able to stage anything. Okay? So, no, it's not going to happen. The Americans will realize it's over in Asia. And this would have a profound social, psychological effect on the United States. It would be a short-term catastrophe, but a long-term gain. Short-term, the Democrats would lose all credibility, and most Republicans would lose all credibility. All the warmongers, everybody who had advocated war they're going to be politically defenestrated because everybody is going to think, you fucking imbeciles, look what you did. And everybody's going to realize, and they're going to focus on the analogy of Cuba, because that's the closest thing, the closest analogy. It's like America invading Cuba. Who the fuck can beat America if it decides to invade Cuba? Same fucking thing with China. Who the fuck thought it was a good idea to defend Taiwan? against the Chinese invasion. Look at all the thousands of sailors who died in those sunken battleships and those sunken aircraft carriers, right? The thousands of men killed in Subic Bay, in Pearl Harbor, in Okinawa. Mm-hmm. And what America was, and by the way, in the war itself, is America going to deploy troops in Taiwan? No, they're not going to. They're not going to be able to, because they're not going to be able to amass the soldiers in staging areas to invade. Okay? So the Americans are going to lose the war. And they're not going to try to win it, because there's no possibility of winning. And the smarter people are going to recognize this. And the smarter people are going to start to listen to them. What's going to happen is that socially, you're going to have the end of the fifis over facts bullshit mentality. That's going to go out the window, because people are going to say, fuck your feelings, you cocksucking imbecile. We got to look at the reality. We got to be pragmatic. And that is going to descend on America hard. I'm talking a hard pragmatism, a warts and all, dirty language, give it to me straight kind of mentality. It won't happen overnight. It will be a gradual process. But all these people who talk about feelings, woke culture, all this bullshit, it is going to go out the fucking window. Because people are going to say, look what it brought us. This whiny, belly-aching bullshit. And I'm telling you, you know that gymnast who quit the other day, right? I forget the name of the stupid little cunt. And I don't give a fuck if you are offended by it, because she was a stupid little self-involved, self-indulged little cunt. See? I mean, a little bit of pressure and she folds. It's understandable. If she had said, look, it's dangerous for me to be competing because I've lost the ability to know where I am in space when I'm vaulting, which is an essential component for gymnastics. If she had said, I am a danger to myself, I'm going to hurt myself, I'm frankly scared, and I'm going to have to decline, and I know I'm letting everybody down, but I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to hurt myself, and we're going to lose. It's better if I'm replaced by somebody and at least the team medals than if I go out and just splatter myself and we don't get any medal. That would be legitimate. But this bullshit mentality of like, oh, I don't feel it and my mental health is the most important thing, and everybody's calling her a hero and shit like that, that's the last time that mentality is going to fly. After this war loss, people in the United States, I mean, you got to understand, a loss in a war is a bitter thing. But the key issue, a loss in a war with China is not an existential dilemma for the United States. Okay? You got to understand that, well, so long as there's no nuclear war. I'm going to get to that in just a moment, but hold your horses. See, the Americans, if they lose a war with China, what's going to happen? Nothing. I mean, the economy is going to tank because trade with China will end. Trade with Taiwan and all those fucking microchips, they're gone. And so all kinds of disruptions of the supply chain are going to go on for years and years. Years, by the way, okay? This shit, it's going to be fucking heavy. I mean, the Taiwanese factories that shut down for a few months, 9 months or something like that because of COVID, and it's causing serious disruptions. Imagine if those factories are destroyed. The Taiwanese do the scorched earth motherfucker thing, and they destroy those factories. What's going to happen to the American economy? It's going to get fucking hurt bad. And the dollar, fuck yeah, hyperinflates to the fucking moon. Oh, by the way, there's a war in 2022. The dollar is toast. The dollar is done. People keep talking about hyperinflation and prices rising. Yeah. A war happens with China, and the dollar is toast. Okay? Understand that. The second there's a war with China, I mean, you hear rumblings of it. Understand that the dollar is its days are numbered, okay, and numbered in like the double digits. That's how many days it's gonna be numbered, okay. The dollar is gonna hyperinflate. I'm talking, 100% per year, more. Maybe even more, man. I'm talking maybe 300-400% per year. I mean, it's just gonna go to the fucking moon because people are gonna pay anything, everything for certain key components that will disappear with the war with China, because of the trade with China, because of America's dependence on China and Taiwan, America's dependence on foreign trade in certain key components. People say all the time that America's dependence on foreign trade is much less than other countries. It's less than 15%. And they're right. It's the problem is that what is comprised in that 15%, and a lot of it is key fucking technology. Key technology. Like the semiconductors from Taiwan. I mean, globalism and comparative advantage, man, it's all fucking good and fine if it's fucking peacetime. But after this war and the loss, the United States will have a deliberate policy of I never know how to pronounce it, autarky, that is self-sufficiency. The United States industry will revamp, and there will be a stated national drive to self-sufficiency at all cost, so as to, quote, never depend on foreigners again. Yeah, that's going to be the mantra. And what's going to be surprising is that in relatively short order, the United States will have homegrown industry that will replace a lot of the foreign industry that it was dependent on. And it will paradoxically, and this is the crazy thing, a loss in a war with China will be good for the American economy. Not winning the war, losing it. Because with a loss of war, a lot of the self-indulgent bullshit will be thrown out the window. And people will say, we cannot afford to be that self-indulgent anymore. It will cost us a war and thousands of dead. We can't. The next war, we'll lose it, and it'll be much worse because we'll be invaded. And this will mean that there will be an end to mass immigration, and a lot of immigrants will be kicked out and persecuted, no question. And there will be this is, I believe, and this is a very dark thing, but I think that in the United States, after a serious loss of war, there will be a persecution of illegal aliens. There will be a persecution of Asians, obviously Chinese, and there will be a persecution of Jews. And there will be a concerted sense that they all manipulated America into this war and that they're evil. And whether you agree with that or not, it doesn't matter. But I think that that's going to be the natural human reaction. And the next president, the one in 24, and it's not going to be Trump. It's going to be somebody hardcore nationalist. I'm talking hardcore, build the war and electrify the wall kind of nationalist, the kind of nationalist who says, you're Canadian, up against the wall, motherfucker, so I can blow your fucking head off for being in my country illegally. That kind of nationalism, okay? I mean, it's going to be hardcore, okay? Because a loss of war, a loss like this is devastating psychologically, and it makes people reevaluate. And there will be a lot of hysteria in the first couple of years. A lot of hysteria, a lot of finger pointing, blaming people, immigrants, Asians, Jews. I mean, the hysteria, you got to understand, think of the hysteria that we're living in now, but imagine that America loses a war badly to the Chinese and with a lot of fucking casualties. Okay? Dude, the kind of hysteria, of xenophobic hysteria that will fall in the United States will be incredible. Okay? And all these black people, these Somalis rather, who are in Maine and fucking Minnesota and all these people, they're going to get kicked out. Oh, fuck yeah. They're going to be shipped over to the border in Mexico and just dumped there and told Mexico, you solve them. We don't fucking want them. That's what's going to happen. Absolutely. Okay? Which is really fucking ironic. But think of it. Think of it. The United States has, quote unquote, lost wars. In fact, it hasn't won a war since fucking World War II, quite frankly. I mean, Korea was a stalemate. It lost Vietnam. The first Gulf War. That was a clear, unambiguous victory. But aside from that, it's been stalemates and losses. Vietnam, Gulf War II, Afghanistan, they were all losses. Okay? But they were not, they were expected. After a few years, I mean, I think that's why these wars went on so long. Because Americans realized that they had lost, but they kept putting in chips on these bad bets, figuring that, maybe this spin of the roulette wheel will win. Maybe this time. And finally, fuck it, let's move on. That's what basically happened. So it didn't have the psychological blow of this war. Because this war would be so fast. I mean, I'd be really, really surprised if the Chinese invasion of Taiwan takes more than 30 days. From the first shot to capturing the island. I'm not talking about conquering the island. I'm talking about capturing it, okay? 30 days on the outside. it will be such an incredible battle tempo. I mean, something that has never been seen before. I mean, it will make, the German blitzkrieg across Belgium and France look like a fucking old lady crossing the street, man, and be like that. This is going to be light speed, okay? And the casualties will be horrific on both sides, by the way, because you think that the Chinese are the only ones who are going to deploy lethal weapons like the hypersonic missiles and shit like that will kill all kinds of Americans? No, the Americans are going to do the same fucking thing. And here comes the issue of nuclear war. Oh well, I want to finish up with America loses butt part with the issue of Democrats and Republicans. See, the Democrats and progressives, they lose everything. They're going to lose everything. And what's going to happen is that there is going to be a concerted effort to look at reality. Because you see, the lying over the last 5 years, lying about Russian collusion, lying about do we put the vaccine on or not? The vaccine came from a bat market. It came from a virology lab. All these lies, lie after lie after lie. And then the war with China. And they're going to say, oh, yeah, we're going to kick the shit out of the Chinese. And then the United States gets its ass handed to it. And dude, there is going to be a lot of fucking video of this fucking war. Every fucking sailor in every fucking one of these battle groups is going to have a fucking cell phone, right? And every one of those motherfuckers is going to be live streaming this shit. We are going to see the footage of the USS Gerald Ford nuclear aircraft carrier get hit by a hypersonic weapon. We're going to see it. We're going to see that ship sink, that one or whichever one is around that is of that size, that will get sunk. We'll see it. And that will be a blow to the psyche that, I mean, it's going to be like 9/11 worse. See, because 9/11 was spectacular, but it was like these fucking planes hitting a fucking building. I mean, like a fucking movie, right? This is going to be war. And war is different. And we know what war is about. And here's the other thing. The Americans have always had complete confidence in its military. And they've always had this thing, and the military has been very complicit in this, of blaming the civilian leadership for the losses. But this time it's going to be on the leadership. They lost this war. And the politicians are going to pay for it. And what's going to happen is that nobody is going to be in the mood for nice sounding bullshit anymore, for fifis over facts. People are going to say, shut the fuck up. I want the facts. I don't want bullshit anymore. No more bullshit. That's going to be the guiding mantra. And what will happen is that all the people who are bullshitters, like Obama, like Biden, like Kamala Harris, like the Republican leadership, they're all going to get the boot. The people who are going to survive in the political landscape after this loss are going to be people who are willing to tell the truth, who say, this is what's going on, man. This is the truth. This is what's happening. And I'm going to tell you something else, that this is going to sound fucking insane, but I'll throw it out there. I think a lot of people who will rise to political prominence aren't even in politics right now. I think it's going to be people like Tucker Carlson, like Glenn Greenwald, like Matt Taibbi, people who are journalists who've been watching this shit, who can't believe the bullshit going on, who've been talking against the bullshit for years. They're going to have the political power. They're going to be the ones who might wind up being the leaders. I'm not kidding. It sounds fucking crazy. But people are going to be desperate for the truth because they're going to realize that this bullshit narrative over the last few years has led to this colossal loss. And don't kid yourselves, a loss like this to China, it is going to be a psychological blow that is going to be huge. It's going to take 10 years to recover from it. Okay? I mean, long term, America will be better than before. Long term. It will be the kick in the pants that the Americans need to, straighten up and fly right. You know what I'm saying? Long term, 10, 20, 30 years. Short term, holy fucking shit. There are going to be all these people trying to cover their asses. There are going to be all these people trying to hold on to power because they see the sea change going on. There are going to be all these people who are trying to justify their failures. there are going to be all these people who are not going to realize that the old paradigm of like, oh, my fifis, I feel like I've been like offended. It's like hate speech. Oh my God, your words are like violence. Those people are going to still be talking their bullshit, and everybody's going to be like, what the fuck are you saying? We just lost a war with the fucking Chinks, man. What the fuck are you saying? So you see my point? You see what's going to happen? It's going to be like a fucking social nuclear bomb went off in the United States. And by the way, the European allies, they're going to like, holy fuck, the Americans lost. They lost. And holy fuck, the Russians and the Chinese are buddies. All of a sudden, the Europeans are going to decide they either make nice with the Russians or they get armed. The French are going to arm themselves. The Germans are going to ally themselves with the Russians. And the people who are going to pay are Poland, because Poland is going to try to resist, and it's not going to go well for them. Will the Russians invade Poland? Probably not. But the Germans are going to put a lot of political pressure on the Poles. The Poles are going to suffer. The Russians are going to be the big winners of this whole situation. The big winners. Because they're going to have stuck by the Chinese, who won the war, but the Russians didn't lose a single man, and it only cost them a few missiles. And they have global credibility as a real power. They're going to be the big beneficiaries of this war. They're the ones who are really going to win. And thinking about it, and I've been thinking about this very carefully, I think that Putin knows this. I think that this is part of his long-term strategy. You got to understand, Vladimir Putin is a very, very smart man. And Vladimir Putin, unlike every other global leader, by the way, was a competitor in a sport, in a difficult sport, judo. And judo, and anybody who knows judo will tell you, it's as much a mental game as a physical game. You have to have strategies. You have to have move after move after move mapped out in your head. He's the only world leader who's ever been in a competitive sport or a competitive activity outside of politics. And it's a competitive sport that rewards somebody who is, number one, patient, and number two, is thinking 3, 4, 5 moves ahead of his opponent. And of course, he plays chess like every fucking Russian, and they're all good at chess, by the way. I played a couple of Russians, and I thought I was decent enough. I got my ass handed to them. I mean, here in Ukraine, right? Ethnic Russians. I'm never going to play a fucking Russian again at chess because these fuckers, they're good at it. And now my daughter, she's learning it, and she's fucking 8, and she's phenomenal at the fucking thing. And she's average for her little age group, you know? Anyway, going back to this thing, I do believe that Putin has anticipated everything I'm talking to you about. I mean, I'd be very, very surprised if he hadn't, okay, to tell you the truth. And I think that he has planned this. He knows how far to support the Chinese without getting the blame from the American side. And he knows that his long-term vision is to reabsorb all the Russian people into Mother Russia. And once he has them, to grow them and make them be what they could have been had the Russian Empire not fallen to the Bolsheviks. See, he knows what he wants, and he's going to get it. And he is going to help the Chinese just enough to earn chits from the Chinese, but not enough for the Americans to decide we're going to fight the Russians too, or much less the Europeans. And he's going to make nice with the Germans. He's going to tell them, look, this is a China-America thing. We're helping out our ally, China, but we don't have any problem with you guys. You know, you Germans and us Russians, we're copacetic. Nord Stream 2, gas. Hey, we'll throw in a year's freebie of gas if you don't throw a tizzy at us, right? And of course, well, I'm exaggerating because, of course, the Germans are going to read the writing on the wall. And the Americans, rather, losing the war with the Chinese, the Germans are going to be scared shitless because they don't have the military to match the Russians. They don't. If the Russians wanted to, and this is something that people don't understand, and I guess I myself have not emphasized enough about the April 2021 maneuvers of the Russians. The Russians by positioning 120,000 troops on the footsteps of Ukraine in 72 hours. They basically showed that if push came to shove, they could invade Eastern Europe and roll over from the Polish-Belarusian border all the way to fucking Hamburg if they really felt like it. They could invade Germany. And the Germans and NATO, they do not have what it takes to defend. And now with this American pivot to China and the fact that America does not have that many troops on the European peninsula, dude, the Germans are going to realize that Russia is the future and they better make nice with them. And that's what's going to happen. And the whole world is going to look at America, and America is going to be like the kid that, shat his pants. No, he's going to be the kid who got the shit kicked out of him, but a little Chinese geek. That's what he's going to look like. And nobody's going to trust that he's as tough as he says he is. And it's going to cause a lot of chaos in America, a lot of reevaluation that's going to take years. And during this time, there's going to be hyperinflation. The economy is going to go tits up, mass unemployment, all kinds of nightmare going on, right? And the entire political, intellectual, media class in America will be utterly and completely discredited. No one will believe them. And so the only thing that they will try to do is impose totalitarian measures, and it will blow up in their face. It's not that there might be a civil war. It will be that simply people dismiss them and don't do what they say. See? And law enforcement officials and everybody is like, fuck you, I'm not going to do your fucking order because it's stupid, and look where it got us. We lost the war with the Chinese. Okay? That's what's going to happen. Now, the one thing that might make this a fucking nightmare is a nuclear war. And I know, holy shit, I've gone 2 hours. The one thing that will, well, before I get into the whole nuclear weapons thing, hit me with a +1 if you fuckers are hearing you properly and have heard me going on and on and on. I'm looking at the comments now, and you seem to have been, you guys seem to have been following everything. Okay, good. But hit me with a +1 anyway, just to make sure. I'll drink some water here while okay, great. Everybody's like on board. Okay. Now, the nuclear war issue. Why I fear a nuclear exchange, why it might happen or it might not. Frankly, it's a coin toss. Okay. Both sides might fuck it up. Okay. Both sides might launch first. Now, China's Communist Party cares about nothing and no one except remaining in power. Okay. And this is not controversial at all. Okay. So they might use a nuclear weapon if they sense defeat or if they sense a loss of face. Okay. If somehow the Americans are, make some magical kind of move or something, or play something really clever that all of a sudden might throw certain victory into, if the Chinese become unsure as to whether they will achieve total victory, right? They might use a nuclear weapon. And they would use it like a battlefield nuclear weapon. It might be an intermediate range missile to hit like one of the military bases or something, okay? Something nearby. It wouldn't be like an intercontinental ballistic missile to hit Chicago or LA. But as a response to this, battlefield use of a nuclear weapon, the Americans might launch a nuclear weapon of their own from any one of their submarines. And that would be no trick at all, by the way. And they will have nuclear submarines, those big boomers. That's what they're called, by the way. Those big intercontinental ballistic missile submarines, they'll have a few parked nearby during this whole conflict, just in case. And if the Chinese nuke, say, Subic Bay or something like that, because they can get the job done with hypersonic weapons or some shit like that, then the Americans will feel justified in nuking some Chinese staging area, and that's all bets are off. Because if the Americans nuke the Chinese mainland, the Chinese will have no problem whatsoever answering that with a nuclear missile on Anchorage or Fairbanks or LA or Portland. Well, we'd all be happy if Portland got nuked, but seriously. Yeah, they'd hit something in the West Coast, something like that. Okay. And that would be carte blanche for the Americans to go whole hog on China. They'll just nuke the whole fucking thing, turn the whole fucking country to glass, because they'd feel panicked that they're losing and it's a nuclear war, and they'll figure, it's better to shoot it all and shoot first than wait around and see what happens. And so they blast China to fucking Mars. I'm talking just glass the whole fucking country. And the Chinese will have some sort of doomsday scenario that they'll nuke back, and it could hit, lots of major cities in the United States. The thing is, see, the United States, paradoxically enough, it's concentrated. It's a big country, but it's sparsely populated. But the sparsely populated areas can rebuild. So it could wind up, and this is like really far-fetched, but it could be, that they nuke the coasts. But like in the middle of the country, in the mid-sized towns, they rebuild. And over 50 to 100 years, the United States rebuilds, Yeah. And it loses out its intellectual class, and winds up with a more agrarian country. But you see, the United States will never be invaded. Anybody who says that the Chinese are going to invade, that's dumb. Nobody's going to invade America. At best, the Mexican poor will invade. But if the United States gets glassed, no Mexican is going to fucking go. Now, will they? Okay. So, because the United States is a very large continental country, bordered by two oceans, a weak northern neighbor, and a dysfunctional southern neighbor. Okay. So, United States will never be invaded. Never. It's never going to happen. It might get broken up. Okay. Like the Roman Empire, the Western Roman Empire was broken up. But will it ever, be conquered? No, it's not going to happen. Okay. And whatever you might think that the Mexicans are barbarians, they're not barbarians. They're just poor. Okay. And they're going north just for economic opportunity. They don't want, they mean no one any harm. They just want to make a living for themselves. See? And if they see a country that's been totally destroyed, they're not going to go there. They're going to try and make it do with what they have in their home country. See? You got to keep in mind that people who go to the United States, they don't really look forward to it. They're just going there because of economic opportunity. That's it. Okay. So anyway, if China, like I said, if China feels that they need nukes for the battlefield, then it escalates quickly. China shoots a nuke at a base of the Americans, or maybe a carrier group or something. The Americans shoot a missile or a couple of missiles to Chinese deployed forces on the mainland. The Chinese feel that firing on the mainland is no fair, and so it gives them carte blanche to fire on the American mainland, and there you go. Off you go. Mutually assured destruction. But the Americans wind up winning because the Chinese are more concentrated. See, China ceases to exist as a nation. Yeah. And America ceases to exist as a nation. It'll just be a radioactive wasteland on the east and west coasts, but the middle will survive. Okay? That's one scenario. That's what China starts it, right? Now, the U.S. starts it. Well, the U.S. starts it when they think that they're losing. And they think that they're losing. They will be losing. It's not that they're going to be thinking it. They will lose. And as they lose, they say to themselves, well, we got nuclear weapons. Why don't we, nuke one of their forward positions in the mainland? And the current American leadership, headed by Obama. Obama is the guy with the most weight among all the factions. And Obama is a man who is incredibly cavalier about wielding power. He has never understood the weight of the power that he has wielded. For instance, back in, I think it was 2013 or something like that, there was a whole issue with the Swiss banks. Swiss banks didn't want to give up the Swiss privacy stuff about banking. And so the Obama administration very cavalierly said, look, if you don't give us information about the Americans with bank accounts in Switzerland, we'll cut you out of SWIFT. Now, that's like telling somebody who is like, suffered a heart attack, that if he doesn't do what you want, you'll cut off his oxygen. Okay? That's what it's like. The SWIFT system is necessary for any banking system, because you got to understand, the SWIFT system is a messaging system. It is a very complex messaging system to ensure that funds are transferred between banks. It is the highway of money. Okay, money doesn't travel down Swift. It's the banking orders, and each bank has certain funds. Okay, and so they get these orders and they put the funds where the orders are meant to go, and then they send orders on their way to the bank that sent them one, and that other bank does the same. That's how it works. Okay, when you threaten to cut off a country from the SWIFT system, especially a country like Switzerland with such a huge financial sector, you're basically saying, do what I want, or you're not going to breathe. I will cut off your oxygen, and you're going to be dead in a week, because that's what would have happened to the Swiss economy. It would have collapsed, crashed. I mean, full on kaplooey crashed within a week. That kind of cavalier attitude is indicative of a person who is irresponsible or stupid or both. You do not wield such power so cavalierly. Obama did, and he's done it on numerous occasions. He has been happy to wield power that he did not earn and whose total parameters he does not understand. He's been happy to wield this power against people who don't do what he wants. And so it would be no step at all for him to decide, as this war is waging, and everybody knows that Biden is decrepit and Kamala Harris is a fool, and all eyes turn to Obama. And Obama says, yeah, go ahead, like, why don't you drop a couple of nukes just to show him? And, retard generals in the American military say, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, let's nuke Wuhan. Yeah, they're staging soldiers, and we'll nuke Wuhan and we'll show them. Yeah, that's where the virus came from. That's when all these problems started. Let's nuke Wuhan. And they nuke Wuhan, because there are maybe a couple of divisions there or some shit like that. Chinese People's Liberation Army divisions, right? They nuke Wuhan. What the fuck do you think the Chinese are going to do? They're going to go fucking ape shit, justifiably so. These fucking retards in the American administration and the American executive authority and these various factions, they wield power that they do not understand. They wield power and they do not think of the consequences of their actions. They wield power, grotesque power, without any inkling as to what they are doing. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect, but with power instead of information. You see what I'm saying? These cocksucking losers who did not earn the power that they are wielding. It was earned by older generations and earned with bitter lessons learned, bitter experience. But they inherited this power, and like every spoiled brat who inherits $1 billion from his parents or grandparents or whoever the fuck, he spends it without regard to its cost or its effects. So, my thinking is that Obama will be the one to go ahead with the order to launch a nuclear weapon at the Chinese. That's my fear. And unless we have some military officers who are like, dude, we can't do that. I'm going to resign. I'm not going to fucking be a part of this decision. And see, Obama is a fundamentally weak man. And so if enough people sort of like stand up to him, he'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, because he's all about consensus. Like all weaklings, he will only do that which everybody agrees to. And so the variable here is, are enough military commanders in the United States in leadership positions scared enough of a nuclear war that they will be able to say, no, we shouldn't do it, and therefore Obama backtracks? Because like I've read on Naked Capitalism, a website I used to read, not anymore. It went full retard with MMT's bullshit. But back in the day, I used to read it. And one of the people who wrote for that website, her name slips my mind, but she was a law student with Obama. And they called him the Obama meter, or something like that. Obama meter, I think that, Obama meter. And the Obama meter, they said they all despised him because they thought he was a mediocre student, and that he would do this thing that they all thought was so fucking stupid, but as actually a key component of his political power. this woman, her name was Lynn something or other. I forget. Look it up in the website. And she said that Obama, she would go around the room recapping what everybody thought and try to build a consensus. And so, like, regurgitate what everybody thought and try to create a version that everybody agreed with. And they called him the Obama meter because he measured the temperature in the room. Okay. And the smarter Harvard law students despised him because they thought he was an idiot. But they didn't realize the political genius of that move, of trying to gauge the temperature of the room and try to appease everybody, because that way he was on everybody's side, right? But by the same token, he has no definitive point of view. If he pushes the idea of a nuclear war, but enough people are against it within the military leadership at the time of this war, and enough of them say, no, we don't need nukes, we can still win, until, of course, they lose, because they will, because, like I said, the war games prove that. Well, what'll happen is that Obama will back off of this idea because he doesn't believe in anything. He just believes in consensus. Okay? Always remember that about Barack Obama. He has no principles. He's all about a consensus, no matter how absurd the consensus. You see? He is not a leader. He is a consensus builder. And a consensus builder is paradoxically somebody who will do things that are incredibly stupid and refrain from doing incredibly stupid things if enough people are against it. You see? I mean, he's a fucking jellyfish, quite frankly. So it'll depend. Like I said, the Chinese might do it because they need a quickie battlefield advantage because of something that they didn't anticipate the Americans doing. Or it could be that as the loss seems imminent, American leadership says, let's drop a nuke to level up, and that's where it goes to hell. Because look, America nukes mainland China either as a response to a Chinese attack or preemptively. Either way, the Chinese, they go ape shit and shoot their wad insofar as their ICBMs. And they don't have as many ICBMs as, say, the Russians do, but they have enough. They have enough to really put a dent in the United States. Like I said, West Coast and East Coast, I'd say everything from Boston to Washington, D.C. gets nuked. And everything from San Diego to L.A. and then that spot in San Francisco, and San Francisco especially, because the Chinese would just blast San Francisco to fucking Jupiter. Okay, because thinking that that's where all America's tech is. That's not actually true, but they'll think that. And they will blast Silicon Valley, San Francisco, fucking Oakland even. I mean, they'll just blast the whole fucking bay. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I think that's basically how it would go unless saner heads prevail on both sides. And that is impossible to predict. Okay? This will be the first major war between nuclear armed adversaries. Anything could happen. Anything. Okay? But this is more or less what I think. Okay, so I've gone 2 hours and 20 minutes. So holy shit. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Let me yeah, holy cow. Yeah, it's hang on a second. Let me go and turn on the lights. Hang on. Oh, and by the way, I'll be taking questions in a little bit. Actually, what I'll do is I'll put the invite in chat, and look, I'm really exhausted. This is long, okay? So if you got questions or comments, make them quick and to the point, so I can get through at least a few people and just give you my quick perspective, okay? I just put the StreamYard link. Let me go and turn on the lights right now, and I'll be right back. Wait, what happened? My camera got unplugged. Hang on, let me see if I can fix this real quick. Edit. No, that's not it. Settings. Hang on a second. Let me fix this real quick. Let's see if this. Uh, okay, fuck it. No more camera. Sorry about that, guys. I'll take Iron Fist 99 real quick.
Hi, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's on your mind,
Uh,
man?
I had a couple of things to say, but I'm gonna make this more brief. So I live in Israel,
Yeah, I know.
and I come from a well-connected family. In fact, it turns out my cousin is the head of the F-35 program in Israel. And actually, today my family went on a whole trip inside Lebanon with the army. As far as Israel and the Chinese, our government has really been pivoting towards China and moving away from the U.S. I have a couple
Yeah.
examples.
I
Uh,
know. China hates the Israelis. Bottom
yeah,
line.
and we try to
They
keep their
hate.
ass. We keep kissing their ass. It's
Yeah.
hilarious.
The Chinese despise Jewish people.
Yeah,
It's as
like with a
simple as that.
burning passion.
Uh,
And like
uh,
true
uh,
Jews, we go after them.
well, Jewish people have a habit of trying to make nice with particularly the people who despise them the most, and paradoxically treating badly the people who actually like them and treat them nicely. And it's a cultural habit. I don't quite know where it comes from. You would have be in a better position than me to know, but I can say unequivocally that the Chinese hate and distrust Jewish people. And there was a recent article in the Hollywood Reporter, the last few months, I forget, that basically the Hollywood Reporter is the news magazine of the film business. And basically, the people in Hollywood have realized, and Hollywood is a Jewish business. There's nothing
Yep,
wrong with that. It's the truth. They realized that China will continue to fuck them over because the Americans, the people in Hollywood, thought that somehow they'd be able to make some deal with the Chinese, but the Chinese will always fuck them over. They own
every time.
51, yeah, 51% of the of Disney of the Disney parks in China. They will they dislike Jewish Americans and Israelis and Jewish in general for two reasons. Number one, a generalized xenophobia, because Chinese Han dislike everybody. Okay, I mean it's an equal opportunity hater, although they tend to hate African people or people of African descent more than people of European descent, right? But of course, they hate the Japanese worst of all, which is the people closest to them. But anyway,
Well, I mean, Mao thanked the Japanese for World War II because he said that if it wasn't for World War II, the nationalists never would have lost. So it's kind of ironic, but
well,
yeah, I
yeah.
agree.
But the thing is, see, the Chinese will never be welcoming to the Jews or to Israel,
Well, to
and
anyone really.
well, no, but especially them. But they will be welcoming to the Russians. But the Russians have their own issues with Jewish people, and Jewish people have their issues with the
I'm
Russians.
Russian Jewish. I know it pretty well. My
Yeah,
family came here.
yeah, and Russian Jews hate Russia and the Russian leadership because of the pogroms. It's just
Well,
the
I disagree.
Bible.
I disagree. I mean,
Okay.
The Russian Jews in America fucking hate Russia like there's no tomorrow. But in Israel, we have a large Russian community, and a lot of those people kind of feel Russian. I mean, if you go to certain
Yeah,
parts, like my grandmother's Russian, for example.
yeah. They feel Russian, but they hate Russia.
I
So
mean, they have Russian passports, some of them, and they go
yeah,
there pretty
yeah,
often.
but the thing is, see, as a practical matter, okay, and the Russians, they're aware of this. They're aware of this hatred, and they feel it too, for that matter. Okay, so look, bottom line, the Israelis, the best bet for the Israelis are the Americans, and I'm telling you that my thinking after war, after a loss in a war like this, the xenophobia against Jews is going to be off the charts. You go to 4chan, and I'm sure you have. You're a netizen. You know about the
Yeah,
net, right? Go to
yeah.
4chan, and what the 1488 jokes are all over the fucking place. But all of that, what does it mask? A deep-seated resentment. Whether it's justified or not is immaterial. There is a deep-seated resentment against Jewish people in Israel because there is the perception that Jews and the Israeli government has manipulated the United States.
We have.
4chan is always ahead of the curve. It's the smartest people go to 4chan, okay? And so if they're at that point now, that's where the United States is going to be 5 years from now after a traumatic loss to the Chinese. You got to understand this, and you got to
Well,
prepare accordingly.
can I comment about
Sure.
this? So I come from an upper middle class family, and I spoke
Yeah.
to most of my family in the States, and they're all their kids are all like, we're coming to Israel in the next 5 to 10 years. We're all going to be here. Like
Huh?
they can sense it already. I mean, my cousin got a job in an Israeli company in the States.
Yep.
Um, I wanted to ask you something, by the way. So
Sure.
you said it yourself. Like upper class people has this mentality that we don't really give a fuck. And I come from a middle upper class background, and
You keep insisting that. This is the fourth time you said it so far, but go ahead. I believe you, but you don't have to keep reiterating it. Go
okay,
ahead.
I'll say it again. I'm joking. What was your opinion on dating a girl from like a not from the same? Because I've dated girls from the same kind of private school background.
I'm not talking about that because this is about China. Okay.
Okay, well, thank
Great
you, Coach.
talking to you. Take it easy.
We'll do. Bye bye.
Hello.
Hello, Igor. How's it going?
Great, coach. I'm going to keep it short. I'm sorry for embarrassing you on the Duran podcast. I didn't. My connection was very, very shitty.
Okay, so what's on your mind?
I was asking you about learning languages, and you mentioned Chinese, Russian. And first of all, I tried learning Chinese. It's fucking impossible. And
Okay.
now this situation with China does not go in favor of learning Chinese. So, do you recommend anything else?
Yeah, English, Spanish, Russian, Chinese. That would be the best approach.
Yeah, and what is your opinion on Slovakia and Slovenia?
I don't know. I mean, there is. I mean, I don't mean to be rude to the people up there. I don't know if you're from those countries, but there's small bananas in this situation. Okay, this is where the
Sure.
big boys are fighting. Okay, Slovakia, Slovenia, all those small countries, they're gonna wind up going wherever Germany and Russia decide. Okay, so
Yeah, sure.
whatever is going on between Russia and Germany, and like I said, I think that Russia and Germany are going to come to an agreement because that's the smart move long term for the Germans. And the Germans are not stupid, and they're pragmatic. When push comes to shove, they're going to do the smart thing and be nice with the Russians, because it's not that the Russians are going to be threatening them. It's Russia's very close friendship with the Chinese. That's the situation. Anything else on your mind?
Cool. No, the bearded guy with a gun scared me, so I got I got to leave. And coach,
Okay.
you always a webinar on Potlava. I'm waiting it so hard, and
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
webinar about Potlava, the region in Ukraine.
Oh, I'll get around to that soon enough. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Take it easy,
Thank you.
Igor.
Bye.
Thank you. Hi, boss. How's it going?
Doing well, Coach. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. What's on your mind?
So this is basically a general survival question because I'm acknowledging that it's a little bit more business oriented, but it has to do with the coming storm that we're going to have to do. We're going to we're likely to go into decline. I just sold my grandmother's house.
Yep.
So I've got to do something with this money because inflation is going to catch up with me. It's going to end up being worthless. My strategy is to purchase a mobile home park in Florida. Reason being that they're a really great asset when economies go into decline because they're.
How much would it cost you?
How much would it cost me?
Yeah.
Running, probably about $500,000 for about 8 to 10 units.
And how much does each unit rent out for?
About 500 to 600.
$500,000 for 10 units at about 5,000 a month?
At about roughly, yes.
So you're talking 60,000 a year for 500,000 investment. That's fucking good. That's 12%.
I mean, yeah, it's not bad. They perform surprisingly well. It's a very, very niche market. There's not a lot of demand for them. They're not building any more of them as of yet. So I think that outside looking in, I just wanted you're not asking for any investment advice.
No, I'm not. I'm not advising. I mean, it sounds pretty damn good. That's all I have to say. Okay. I mean, if you're looking at it, let me see if I get this straight. You're saying that it's $500,000 to purchase this mobile home park, and each lot rents for $500 a month. And this lot has, like, say, 8 spaces. Real quick, let me just yank out my calculator here. 8 spaces at 500. That's 4,000 a month times 12. That's 48,000 divided by 500,000. That's 9.6% per year. That's gross return on investment before any property taxes, any maintenance fee. Let's say that, just for the sake of argument, that property taxes, maintenance fees, and all the rest of it are like 25% of that income times 0.75 equals, you get a little over 7% return on investment after expenses. That sounds pretty fucking good if you ask me. Okay, I mean, I'd do it. Okay, but that's me. That's me. I'm just saying what I would do. I'm not saying what you should do, or you do whatever you think is right. But damn, that looks pretty good to me. What the fuck can I tell you, man?
Yeah, I think that my biggest concern is that due diligence portion. So I'm looking at the clock. I'm at war with the clock because we have to find the spot that we do all the due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
That due diligence we're going to take to our financial institution, and I'm hoping to get the interest. Like I'm afraid. I'm actually afraid. I'm afraid to look at the interest rates right now.
Okay, I'm going to have to cut you off because I want to get
All
through
right.
people. So you're going to have to get more to the point. What's your point?
Yeah, I think that I can't cover it completely by myself. Your experience and going in and talking to a financial institution on expenditures. I know that you have experience in real estate.
Just put together
financing cash flowing properties is a lot easier.
Yeah, just put together a financial projection. Hire yourself some kid like at an MBA program or a finance program of your university. Throw him like $300 to tell him to build you a proper Excel type financial projection and create a financial model. It shouldn't be difficult and it shouldn't be expensive. I mean, $300 would be plenty. And take it down to the bank and show him and say, look, these are the numbers, man. I'll have plenty of money to pay you back the mortgage. So give me money.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Take it
Sounds
easy,
good.
man. Best of luck. Man,
Appreciate it.
and I'll tell you right now, that sounds like a really, really sweet deal. Not kidding around.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not bad.
Yeah.
You don't think about them, but
Yeah. Think it
Can't
over.
happen.
Yeah. Sounds like a good deal. Take it easy. Pagliacci, how's it going?
It's going good, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yeah. What's on your mind, man?
Coach, I'm wondering if you could briefly kind of give us your thoughts on how the overseas Chinese and Canada, America, obviously, Australia, and places in I guess the other places in the West, how they might behave or how they might be treated if this war were to occur.
Well, first of all, you have to understand that a number of Chinese nationals in the rest of the world, in Oceania, Canada, America, Europe, they are Chinese government plants. Also, a lot of them are the sons and daughters of Chinese Communist Party members. I mean, that's a lot of times how they got to those countries and got to those universities and whatnot. Okay, so a lot of them during a war would be, spies. And the United States, the FBI, and whatnot, they're going to scoop them up as quick as possible. The so-called Five Eyes, which are the five intelligence services of Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United States, and Great Britain, they're going to scoop up a lot of those guys. Absolutely, But a lot of them are going to slip through the cracks. A lot of them are going to be cyber terrorism, if you want to. You got to understand, a war like this is going to be fought on multiple fronts. There's going to be the war, the battlefield, right? But there's also going to be propaganda, a lot of propaganda beforehand. I didn't even cover the propaganda that's going to happen before the war actually starts, okay? There's going to be a lot of it. And China is going to be in the air all the fuck long, man. And so that it's coming, okay? But all kinds of Chinese communist propaganda, a lot of anti-Asian. There's racism because the Chinese have discovered that racism, the accusation of racism, is the Achilles heel in the United States. And you call anybody a racist and they get like, it's like when you startle a goat. You ever startle a goat? It just tips over, It's the same fucking thing. You call somebody an American a racist and they just freeze up and tip over, right? And the Chinese are not stupid. They figured this out. And so what they're going to do is they're going to call people racist, all this, that, the other. And there will be racist attacks, no question. And there's going to be a lot of people, attacking Chinese nationals out of xenophobia, out of nationalism. I mean, it's, the typical. But the thing that you have to understand is that some of these Chinese nationals will be innocent and some of them will be guilty of sin. Some of them will be just regular Chinese people who emigrated to North America or wherever, and some of them will be plants by the communist Chinese. And so nobody will be able to figure it out easily. And so that's why every Chinese, unless they've been in the United States for a long time and have a lot of really, really deep roots, they're all going to get the hammer. They're all going to get some kind of racial persecution. It's not going to be fucking fun. You know, that's my thinking.
Okay, thank you very much, Coach.
No problem. It's a very ugly situation, to tell you the truth. But I think that that's sort of like inevitable. Chris O, do you agree or disagree?
I agree, and it's a question I had asked you a while ago. If you remember, you're doing a seminar about China as well, and at that point, you mentioned that they could be treated as enemy, agents,
enemy combatants. Yeah, enemy agents. Call them what you will. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that. Yeah, I think it's the odds are high, especially because if the Chinese plants, and there are plants, there are agents in the West. I mean, the Chinese government has done it before. It's not a big secret, right? If those agents start wreaking real havoc in the West, they'll just go after all East Asians, all Chinese people, even old ladies. I mean, it'll be really kind of disgusting because some of there will be abuses. It's inevitable.
So
but when that happens, it's just be across the board.
How will that influence overall social cohesion in a multi-ethnic society such as the United States?
The multicultural, multi-ethnic bullshit will go out the window.
So are we talking like ethnic strife or segregation?
No, yeah, but with the Chinese, sure. And there will be in the United States, for instance, a fairly multicultural area. There'll be this tacit understanding. Okay, there's blacks, there's whites, and there's Hispanics. And there are some Asians that we like the Vietnamese, Cambodians, those fucking people. And the Japanese, sure. Chinese, out. And Jews, out. Because there will be the perception that Jewish people are on the side of the Chinese. They haven't helped themselves, okay? Because, for instance, you have a lot of Jews in the United States who are marrying ethnic Chinese women, learning Chinese. Hell, Mark Zuckerberg, he's the stereotype of the breed. Okay, you have a lot of you have Eurasian people, young people, with Jewish last names. There are a lot of them, like the mattress girl. What's her name? I forget the name of the girl. Yeah, her father was Jewish and her mother was Chinese. What do I think? I could give a shit. I mean, if the Jewish guy wants to bang some Asian girl, good for him. I mean, shit, a lot of Asian girls are fucking hot. I'd bang a few. Why not? But that's not the point. The point is, see, will they be perceived as fifth columnists? I think that the answer is yes. And I think that if you look at history, and this has happened to the Jewish people over and over again, a lot of times they get caught when war happens. And many times Jewish people are perceived, whether justifiably or not, as siding with the enemy or as not being sufficiently enthusiastic for the home team. And either way, this oftentimes leads to Jewish people being persecuted. This has happened before in other cultures, and not just in the 20th century, in the 18th century, 17th century, and you go back all the way to the destruction of the Jerusalem temple. And so this has happened so many times that it seems reasonable to infer that it could happen again with a war between the United States and China.
So, for example, in marriages between stereotypically Chinese woman and a Western man, I mean, what happens then? Are we like balkanization where the husband has to
get persecuted? Simple as that,
And the husband just stands there.
You got to keep in mind, dude, when a whole fucking mob is going after you, and there's something else, another problem too that people don't seem to realize. We have normalized mob behavior. It's perfectly normal to cancel or deplatform or persecute or harass somebody just because of their opinion. So imagine that mentality. and all of a sudden there's a war that your country is losing badly, do you think that mentality, that mob mentality, will not be applied to the perceived enemy of the country? If they're applied to somebody because they tweeted the wrong fucking thing, okay, or 5 years ago, and said something that was mildly transphobic, or Jesus, if you look at it just the right angle with the right lens, maybe you could say it's transphobic, and they get their lives destroyed, don't you think that kind of mob mentality will be turned on people perceived to be enemies or fifth columnists? And what will happen to them? It will be horrible. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I mean, I want to make it really fucking clear. In this discussion, I am saying what I think might happen. Do I want this? No, of course not. I don't want a war. I don't want a nuclear war. I don't want any kind of war. And I certainly don't want anybody persecuted for any reason whatsoever. Okay? Do I think that this could happen? Yes. Yes.
Okay. I'll ask my two questions very quickly. The first one is talking about this social backlash. I mean, no more fifis.
But that would not be right away. Okay, like I tried to emphasize in my stream, it would take a while for that mentality to seep through. That this fifis over facts bullshit mentality, it'll go out the window. But it won't be overnight. It'll be in a few years, like 2-3 years.
Would there be a backlash against people looking back? I remember 2020, 2021.
Yeah, remember those fucking retard transsexuals who tried to pretend that a guy in a dress is a woman? Yeah, that kind of mentality.
Second question is that so far you kind of mentioned what you might call it third generation.
Stop. You to explain the point. It might seem like I'm coming out of nowhere, but you have to understand. Have you ever, Chris, and I don't mean to be personal or pry, okay? Just answer the question vaguely. Have you ever been like dirt poor and totally broke and destitute and you didn't know where you were going to sleep that night?
Close to it, yes.
Yeah. And did you notice that you got a lot more desperate and a lot more pragmatic about shit? Did you notice that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, have you ever been in a street fight or a fight of any kind?
Yes.
Okay. And you got the shit kicked out of you, right?
Yes.
And yeah. And I mean, we all have. We've all been there. I remember I got the shit kicked out of me a couple of times when I was like 16 or something. So yeah, I know what it's like. I mean, like street fights. The last street fight I had was like, I don't know, I was like 21, 22, something like that. So I know what it's like. And I know what it's like to be on the winning side of a street fight and on the losing side. And have you noticed that you get on the losing side and all of a sudden you sort of like wake up from all the bullshit that's been in your head?
Sure.
Okay. Extrapolate that, but nationwide. You see? And that's what happens. When a nation loses a war, they all of a sudden start like really looking at themselves.
Well, this could be the only, one of the main positive things that could potentially come out of all of it.
Exactly. But you see what I'm saying? Okay. There could be a lot of ugliness, like persecution of religious minorities and ethnic minorities because of a perception that they are not on our side, like what I described about Jewish people or what I described about East Asian people. Also, like I said during the presentation, that there would be a persecution of a lot of newfound immigrants who are like, what the fuck are you here? We're broke and poor and fucked up and we just lost war. And why are you taking our resources? Get the fuck out of our country. That kind of mentality. I mean, I'm saying it as if I'm saying it. I'm not saying it as me personally. I'm saying it to illustrate the point that if the United States loses a war badly, there could be a huge uptick of xenophobia and isolationism for sure, and xenophobia in the sense of getting rid of people who are not perceived as American. I mean, you can have somebody who's kind of like white-skinned, but there's a perception he's not really American. And on the other hand, you see some black guy from Newark, and you're like, oh yeah, he's an American. Yeah, you see, it's not a racial thing. It will be like a national identity thing, okay? You got to understand that is what's going to happen. And if there's a loss of this war, and it's a loss that's very definitive, but not nuclear, then long-term, it will be to the benefit of the United States. Long-term, it will be huge for the United States. Frankly, if the United States loses a war that catastrophically, but without nuclear weapons, and decides to regroup, I would move back to the United States. I'm not kidding. Okay. Yeah.
Second
But,
question,
yeah.
cyber attack dimension, because so far we talk about hardware, attacks, missiles. What about the whole cyber dimension, hacking, cyber?
Oh yeah, all that good shit will happen. Okay. Now, how important it'll be, bottom line, I think it'll be annoying, but it won't be a determining factor.
So
What'll be
shutting down infrastructure, destroying banking systems.
in the actual war, it's not going to play a big role. Afterwards, in the cleanup of all that mess, sure, but during the actual war, it's not going to determine who wins or loses. It'll just be a distraction.
Okay. Thank you, Coach.
Yeah. My pleasure, man. Thanks for being on. Appreciate it. And by the way, I hope, Chris, that you liked the presentation.
Very much. I mean, he had that sensation. Let's say, 1938, there was a professor giving a lecture to some students saying, next year there's going to be, big Germans going to attack, and then, I mean, it's kind of, it makes sense, but beforehand it seems surreal. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
I'll bet you $10. $10.
No, too much. That's too rich for me. I only bet $1. Yeah, because $1, nobody's upset. $10. Holy shit, man! I'm gonna be out there begging on the streets for cash, man. No, thank you.
Okay, I'll bet you $1, but given inflation, you have to probably give me $10 next year.
Adjusted for inflation. Okay, let's leave it at that.
All right, thank you.
Take it easy, Chris. Bye. Hey, Bill, how's it going?
Hey, Coach, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's on your mind, man?
Okay, very good.
The presentation.
Excellent presentation. I'm really amazed. You really know your stuff. One thing you didn't touch on are the neighbors, China's neighbors, and they don't like China. And I think early on they're going to jump in with the Americans, and I think that changes. I think the Japanese, the Indians, the Australians, the Filipinos, and the Vietnamese, they can't. If America loses, then they're going to have to kowtow to China for years, and I don't think they want that. I think they'll join.
I agree. I agree completely with you.
And I think China is going to lose badly.
No, they won't. And I'll explain why. Because right now, those countries that you mentioned, India, Australia, Japan, they don't have what it takes to face the Chinese. The Chinese are bigger. And the Americans, who are the biggest kid on the block, they're going to lose. And so it's not that the effects are going to be during the war. Those countries, they will literally be in the way of the Americans and the Chinese war. Nobody's going to pay attention to them because they're too small, militarily speaking. It'll be in the after effects of the war. See, India, Australia, Japan will be permanent problems. Vietnam especially. They will be permanent problems for the Chinese after they invade Taiwan. Okay? But not during the war. Okay? Because their militaries are simply not strong enough. Okay? And for instance, let's suppose, for the sake of argument, that the Indians take advantage of the situation to invade Tibet while the Chinese are busy with Taiwan. It would be no cinch at all eventually for once the Chinese have firm grasp of Taiwan, though they haven't conquered it for the reasons I mentioned in the presentation. But once they have, the Americans have withdrawn, then they pivot and beat the shit out of the Indians. It would be no trick for them at all. Okay. And so, and the Australians, for instance, the Australians have a whole bunch of islands and a whole bunch of ocean between themselves and the Chinese. So it's questionable whether they would really be deploying their armed forces to, attack China some way. And certainly the Chinese have no interest in invading Australia, regardless of what some fool might say. They have no interest whatsoever because it's like way the fuck away. The Chinese only care about China. They don't even care about Japan, which is right there in front of them. They don't want to invade Japan. They think it's full of Japanese that are disgusting. All they care about is China. And Taiwan is part of China. That's why they care about Taiwan. But they don't have this. The closest that they care about of some foreign territory is probably Vietnam. And that's why Vietnam would be the biggest thorn in the side of the Chinese. Because the Vietnamese would be like really, really upset and scared rather. But the other countries, go ahead.
We disagree on that point. But you're spot on with the rest of it about the Russia and about Europe and about what would happen inside the United States. I think you're really impressive. Yeah. I tend to agree with that.
I'm laughing. You can't see me, unfortunately, because my camera went on the fritz. But thank you very much, Bill. That's very, very kind of you. I very much appreciate what you said. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
So
Bye-bye.
anything
Thank
else
you.
on your mind? No?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take
Thank
it
you.
easy, man. Hey, Zhang, how's it going? Hello,
Hi, Coach.
Zhang. You there? Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Where are you calling from, by the way?
I'm calling from Texas,
From where?
U.S.
Hello?
Hello.
The U.S. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I hear you like really far away. Can you turn up your levels, please? I appreciate it.
Is it better now?
I think so. So what's on your mind?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this U.S.-China war is interesting topic. I would say I partially agree what you said.
Okay, what part do you agree and what part, more interestingly, do you disagree?
Yeah. So let me explain that. I think you are right spot on about U.S. motivation to have a war, probably on China, right? So I think that for the reason you mentioned, I think you are right on that part. That's a possibility. But I think I don't agree with the motivation you talk about China on the war with U.S.
You're Chinese, ethnically Chinese, correct?
Yes,
So I'm very, very interested in your opinion because you're probably right. You're probably right that my analysis of the Chinese motivation is not as accurate or nuanced as yours. So please tell us. I'm very interested.
Yes. Here's what I think, right? So I think the CCP, they definitely want take over the US as the number one power in the world. That's the one.
Yes.
That's their main goal. That's no question about that. The approach they take is it's more like if you they like a bio weapon, like the virus thing, right? Or like a cyber war with like 5G things. Those things I think works well for them. And you see, it already works, right? You see the coronavirus, right? They just throw the virus here, and then the US already divide by themselves, right? It's quite effective. And they use propaganda. They're the master of mind control, right? Use the social media, their propaganda, right? And then those approach, it works effective for them. And the reason they don't want a hot war with the US is because think about as a totalitarian regime, right? So their number one goal is to maintain their power in China, to control the 1.4 billion people, right? They want to rule them forever. They never want to lose the power. If they lose the power, the game over, right? So that's all the communists about. So first of all, maintain the power, and then expand to globally, right? To be a global power. That's their ultimate goal, right? So to achieve that, so if they went to a hot war with another country, especially the U.S., it's a global hegemony. You mentioned it's a global superpower. It's a white card for them, right? It's a huge risk. So think about I would bet that if when U.S. troops came to China, I would say the Chinese people are probably going to be work with the U.S. troops to work against the CCP, right? So that's a possibility because what happened in China domestically, so there's not much news come out, right? Because they put it down, right? They just their propaganda is just like to maintain their positive images to think to allow the world to think they are powerful and they're doing good and they.
Okay, Zhang, but let me refocus the conversation. So you're basically saying that the Chinese Communist Party will not risk a hot war, and they will instead go for this, disruption of Western society, of American society. But by way of disruption, you never capture Taiwan. You can disrupt America all you want, but that is not the way to capture the island of Taiwan. How do they do that trick?
Yeah, that's a good point. So this is what I think, right? I think Taiwan is for CCP is always it's a ball. That is a ball for them, right? So they want they desperately want them, but I would think it's ultimately it's still a political game, right? So what they want to use that Taiwan thing to be like to unite the Chinese people and to say, look, So to you think about how you make the nationalism works. You always have to first you need to have enemies, right? You also need like a target, like okay, Taiwan, they're part of us. They become this part of China, right? So in that case, they can manipulate the Chinese people, right? To
The
cultivate
thing is,
the nationalism.
I'm not. You're basically saying that they're going to have this Taiwan issue forever.
Yeah,
I
guess
disagree.
so.
I think that
Okay.
I think that basically there will come a moment when they decide we want to take it, and I think especially the last 5 years has shown, President Xi has become more totalitarian, authoritarian,
Yeah.
and the Chinese armed forces, the People's Liberation Army, is feeling more and more self-confident, and so that's why I think that they are thinking that now with this chaotic Biden administration, this might be the perfect opportunity, and this opportunity might not come again, especially if in in the near-term future the Americans get a stronger president. And so that's why I'm thinking that they're going to go for it now, because ultimately, like I said, all of the disinformation, propaganda, cyber warfare, all that bullshit, it does not capture physical territory. You need infantry, troops on the ground to capture territory.
So,
And so that's why I think that it's ultimately the Chinese, the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, this is my argument. I understand your argument, but I just disagree with it. That in the end, you can't be disrupting your way to conquest. There comes a time when you have to go out and conquer, and I think that day is coming. That's my thinking.
well, if you conquer them, they need to think about the risk, right? If they have the risk, what's going on in the back end?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, they need to balance the risk. If they conquer them, if they go to war, and what if they lose the war, right? So and then they lose the power. It's very easy to lose the power.
Yeah,
in China.
but the thing is, see, I don't think that they feel that they're going to lose a war. And the thing is, see, the American war game proves that they can win it, and they can win it consistently.
Why?
And that's why my thinking is that they will win it. And also, they're going to be fucking scared when they fight the Americans, and a scared military leadership is always a better military leadership because they think more outside the box. They are more novel. They are willing to take bigger chances, bigger risks. And that's why I think that the Americans will get their asses handed to them, because the Chinese will be powerful enough and scared enough, insecure enough that they succeed. They've succeeded on paper before, and I see no reason why they would fail in the real thing. Anyway, Zhang, thanks so much for your perspective. I really appreciate it. You take care now, okay?
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks very much. Hi, Amado. Oops, let me unmute you. Sorry about that, because you had some noises going on in the background. Amado, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine, loud and clear. What's on your mind, man?
Okay, great. Well, the good thing is that half my questions were answered when Chris was on. Something that I really stuck on, 'cause I know you talked about it earlier, was I liked how you brought up how, I guess you said like during the 1900s, so the last century, that the U.S. kind of watched over all the seas, like the whole world. They give us like this idea of like safety, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think in the war, so the United States, in a sense, we get exposed, that image will change, that people won't look at us as so strong anymore?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. The United States will lose huge in terms of soft power, because a lot of times power, is what people believe you have, not the actual power that you have. Okay? And so,
so kind of like how Russia, you said, like people don't perceive Russia as strong as they are because people view America as more powerful, even though Russia has plenty of strength. Okay.
Yeah, like what happened in April. You have to understand the shock of what happened in April in the corridors of power of Germany and the UK and the United States. You see, the Ukrainians pushed their army forward. I have no doubt in my mind that it was at the suggestion of the Americans and the Europeans. And they pushed their army forward close to the Donetsk and Lugansk areas of dispute. And the Russians, in 72 hours, put 120,000 troops, fresh troops, fully mechanized, in 72 hours, put 60,000 in Crimea and another 60,000 across the border from Donetsk and Lugansk. Ready, combat ready. That scared the fuck out of them. And all of a sudden, the Europeans and the Americans realized, holy shit, it's not that the Russians are rebuilding their army. They rebuilt it. They're ready, and they're
Oh,
more
well,
ready than we are.
that's a good
And
point. So kind of like how you said how weak leaders, kind of like Obama, how he tries to essentially kind of like a popularity contest. So when the pressure gets put on us, like when danger is actually here. 'Cause I remember you said, like, for example, out in Eastern Europe, that the people, or in this case the women, they might want someone who's older because he can handle the stress of the environment. So when stress comes to America, what will happen to leaders like Obama and whatever?
They'll get swept aside.
Oh, okay. So it's just that simple.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So also, I remember you said how because we kind of have a false sense of security that we built our technology. So do you think, in your opinion, that right now the whole technological revolution, it's kind of peaked?
Yeah, I think it did. My sense that it's sort of like it's peaked, and what'll happen is that if there's a major loss, like I said in the presentation, if there's a major loss in a Sino-American war, then the Americans will retrench. The Europeans and the countries in East Asia, Japan, South Korea, Australia, they'll all retrench. They'll spend a lot more on the military to protect against China, and also because they will sense to themselves, the Americans no longer have our backs because they lost. And so because of that, there will be a lot less technological innovation, and there will be a severe retrenchment. People will be a lot more armed. And I would not be surprised if there was a lot more little wars that happen because of this.
What do you think that'll do to the economy? Because I remember you said how service jobs. I'm sorry, did you hear me?
Yeah. What it'll do to the economy, what'll happen is that short term, the dollar is toast. It's fucking dead. Dead as Dillinger. It'll hyperinflate the whole shebang, right? We'll have a new dollar, and if there is a war in the summer of 22, by 2024, 2025, $1,000 bill will not buy you a cup of coffee. Okay? And they will come up with a new dollar, or they'll call it the American or some shit like that. Anyway, the dollar will no longer be the reserve currency. The United States will have severe economic problems, and it'll be at least a couple of decades before the United States is able to retool and rebuild. The United States has a huge population. Never forget that. It's one of the largest countries in the world, and it's very advanced in a lot of ways. And so there's no reason to doubt that after a catastrophic loss and a financial collapse, which would be in the cards, that the United States in 20 years, 30 years might not be able to retool and rebuild. That could well happen, okay? And in fact, that's what I would bet on, okay? That the United States rebuilds, but it would be a lot more state by state. It would be a lot more regional. Look, if there's a severe loss in a war and the currency collapses, as it inevitably would, even with a successful war, the American dollar will collapse. Even if the United States actually won against the Chinese and repelled the Taiwanese invader, the disruption would cause prices to skyrocket. The dollar would get toast. I mean, whatever way you look at it, the dollar's over. Okay. Even if America won. Okay. Now that severe financial crisis is going to mean that for 10 years, the United States is going to be toast. The United States is not going to win the war because, like I said, this is China's Cuba. It's too fucking close and we are too fucking far. And the Chinese have our number. They understand how Americans fight and they know how to counteract that. And they're going to do it. They are ruthless enough to do it. They're not going to shy away. They're not going to hesitate. Saddam Hussein could have sunk one of America's aircraft carriers when it passed through the Strait of Hormuz. I forget which one it was. He could have done it, but he didn't have the nerve to do it. The Chinese are not going to have that problem. The Americans knew it, by the way. They knew that Saddam Hussein did not have the balls, the cojones, to do it. But the Chinese, they will have no such hesitation. They will attack Hawaii. They will attack Diego Garcia. They will attack Subic Bay. They will attack Okinawa. And they will attack, at least launch serious attacks against the closest 3 aircraft carriers that they can find. They'll do it. They're not going to hesitate. They're going to win.
Okay, so you're saying that pretty much all that we don't even. I remember you said invasion's not in the cards, but you're saying it doesn't even have to go to that extreme for our attitude to change.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the last thing based off of that. I remember you said, how, kind of like these weak leaders these days, they'll get swept aside. So other like kind of, I remember you brought wasteful behaviors that we get into. We just wouldn't have time for those things in a war culture. Okay.
No, in a culture that has lost a major war, nobody would have the patience for the bullshit.
Oh.
Okay. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
Only child.
Okay. Well, and suppose you had like a cousin who was in an aircraft carrier as a sailor and he died.
Okay.
And you were like real close to him, like a brother or something like that. And some nitwit shithead says, "Ew, your words are violence to me." What would you do? And you'd clock him in the face, probably.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You'd say, "Hey, cocksucker."
Yeah. Have some respect. Yeah. Okay. Coach, still there?
Piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still here. But you see my point.
Mhm.
Do you understand the point? It's going to change the mentality drastically. And the people who don't adjust quickly are going to get chewed up and spit out.
Yeah. And this has happened before in history.
It happens every time in history.
Okay. Well, you answered all my questions. Thank you, Coach.
My pleasure. Take it easy, Amato. Hey, Robert, how's it going?
Hey, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's up?
Hey, first off, Coach, big fan of your work. Been following you for years. It's an honor to be
thank
on the
you.
stream. Thank you so much.
Dude,
you really
man,
have had a positive influence on my life, so thank you for that.
You are hanging out with lowlifes if you're saying that it's an honor to be talking to you, man. I mean, come on. Yeah.
Well,
thank you very much.
Is pretty low.
Yeah, good. Yeah, mine too. Good to talk to you, man. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you. As I say, I very much appreciate it, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
How can I help?
First question, I'll get straight to the point. Something that I've noticed on a more personal level is the ability to kind of see moving parts, process information, kind of see kind of what's going ahead.
Yeah.
The issue I've had is
how old are you, by the way? How old are you?
27.
Okay, good. Good. You're ahead of the game, man. So what's up?
Yeah. The issue I've had is that getting kind of close family, friends to kind of see what's coming. For example, the pandemic, I saw what was coming months ahead just because I happened to be paying attention and got ready. How do you get people to kind of listen to what's going on, especially with the economic problems that we're about to be facing?
Tell them, but don't browbeat them. And if they don't want to be convinced, let them. Simple as that. See?
Okay.
Look, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You know that saying? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So look, the best you can do is you can talk to people about it. And a lot of times what happens is that when you try to explain what you're thinking to somebody else, it clarifies your own thinking. That's why I fucking love these fucking webinars, by the way. I mean, for me, I get as much out of them as probably you do, probably more than you do, quite frankly, because as I'm writing it up and writing out my outline, I'm figuring out what I actually think, because a lot of times you have a vague idea of what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
When you have to explain it to somebody else, especially when it's a structured way, like fucking Excel, PowerPoint shit, right? You hone in on exactly what you think. And so whatever it is that you're thinking, I would suggest you do exactly that exercise of trying to explain it to somebody, maybe even doing a fucking PowerPoint presentation, and try to logically and reasonably and calmly explain to them what you think.
Mm-hmm.
If they agree or they don't agree, in a very real sense, it almost doesn't matter because you're clarifying what you think. Okay? Now, like I said before, you cannot convince somebody to agree with you. Okay? They might listen to you and you might have very good points and they might have very good points. And you have to listen to their points. That's why I was very interested in talking to Zheng. Zheng, who was here before, I was very interested in understanding what he thought and why I was wrong, or why he disagreed with my thoughts on the motivation of the Chinese leadership. It's always important to pay attention to what other person is saying, especially when they disagree with you. Now, you try to convince somebody and they don't agree or they aren't convinced, fine, live and let live. Okay? And when things roll around and they go more or less as you thought, don't be the dick who says, "Hey, I told you so," because that's just dick, right?
Yeah.
But, you got to understand that people will accept something in their own time. And if they don't accept it, there are two possibilities. Either they're too pig-headed or your reasons are not good enough. Okay? Always have the humility to question whether your reasons are good enough. Because in this presentation, I could be completely wrong. I don't think that I am. I think I laid out good reasons for what I think will happen. But I could be wrong. And it could be that, the summer of 2022 passes by and, beautiful 4th of July fireworks and nothing happens. And there we are in the November 2022 election. And that's that. Nothing happened. It could very well be that. Okay?
Mhm.
So you always have to be humble. That's my thinking.
Okay.
Anything else on your mind, Robert?
Yeah, just last real quick question. How is
Sure.
how is the impending economic issues? You said the dollar's going to come under a lot of strain. The repo market just passed $1 trillion. How's that going to interplay with the kind of fracturing nature of the United States, kind of along party and ideological lines?
Think about this. See, if you have like a severe hyperinflation of the dollar, right? And so you're in Texas and your dollar isn't worth shit. But you see, what's going to happen is that hyperinflation, the way it works is it's not that all of a sudden the currency loses its value equally in every place at the same time. There are regional issues of supply and demand that will make the dollar lose value quicker or slower, depending on the resource that's being exchanged for money or region.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. Hello?
Predict that, but it would seem reasonable. If all of a sudden, like there's a lot of resources, but no money, no dollars, or not enough for these, maybe some sort of script system emerges. I don't know, but that seems reasonable to assume. It has happened before in other countries that have had hyperinflation. A lot of times, the currency becomes so devalued in such a brief period of time that local people start creating different mediums of exchange. Like for instance, in Zimbabwe, for a time, it was cell phone credits. The amount of minutes on your cell phone could be transferred, and that was used as a de facto script, as a just de facto parallel currency. Okay, and people say cryptocurrency, but cryptocurrency is actually kind of complicated to use. It's not simple for the average normie, and so people will light on something simpler. That's my thinking. But anyway, to go back to your original question as to what the effects of the collapse will be, dude, anything can happen. But the thing is, see, when it comes around, you'll know. Okay. I mean, it's not going to be that you're going to have to be looking for it. It's not like fucking COVID that you have to be like, where are all the dead people? You have to like look far and wide for them because all the fucking doctors at the ICUs are fucking doing TikTok videos and shit like that. And where are the dead people? No fucking dead people. No. When shit hits the fan economically, financially, you'll know. It's not going to be a big surprise. Okay.
Got it. Thank you, Coach. Also,
My
you were
pleasure,
having
man.
some issues earlier, so I just want to let you know about that.
I beg your pardon?
I missed out on part of what you were saying earlier. You having some connection issues. Just want to let you know.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Take it easy, man. Let me see. Give me chat. Give me a quick +1 because I see several zeros here. Oh, you lost me there for a bit. Oh, that's not good. Okay, well, I don't know what happened there. Greg, how's it going?
Coach, what's up? Thank you.
I'm doing pretty good.
Appreciate the presentation. It's pretty good.
Oh, my pleasure. And by the way, I'm gonna hit you, Greg, then Split, then Jacob, and that's the end for me, okay? Because I've been going over 3 hours, so I'm like fried. But go ahead.
So I think it's a compelling presentation. The only question that I have is, well, it's twofold. Number one, why the hell would the world ever agree to this 2022 Olympics, which just gives the Chinese regime even more legitimacy after it's pretty clear they fucked the world over with this virus.
Why did the world do that? You're going to have to ask the world. I don't know. But...
No, why? Well, I guess to backtrack, I would agree with most of your analysis. The only question is, how could this possibly work? I mean, the decoupling between our two economies, it just hasn't even started yet. I mean, I tried to put this picture in my avatar. I mean, the American elite and leadership class has just totally dropped the ball on the China issue. I mean, there's a picture of just the reliance of the world on Chinese trade versus into 2020 versus what it was in 2001. I mean, I think you're on the right track. I guess it's just more of a technical question. I mean, how would this, so 2022 rolls along, there's a massive, what happens to economic relations between both countries, particularly?
They're gone. I mean, if there's a war, it's over. Yeah. It's over. Okay.
So it's almost mutually assured destruction. I mean,
financially, yeah, they're both going to get hit pretty hard. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, do you think do you think that the world should take a stand and back out of the 2022 Olympics? I mean,
well, that would play into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party if they're gearing up for a war. It would play into their hands perfectly, because you see, like, certain allies of the Chinese would not back out. On the contrary, like the Russians, a lot of the African nations, Latin American nations, any country that's getting cash from China. And a lot of countries are getting cash from China. They'd all show up. And so the only ones who would not show up would be like the US, Canada, UK, Australia. I mean, assuming that there was like some total boycott because of some bullshit reason. Okay. And the Chinese would say, see, it's them, this minority group, and the rest of the world is on our side. See, that's how they play it.
Yeah. I mean, this China situation is a fucking mess. I mean, the American leadership has just completely failed. So
no, yeah. Well, look,
all right, take care. Thank you.
No. I just want to say that I completely agree with you that they've completely failed, and I think it's too late. Yeah. I think it's too late. And like I said at the beginning, I would bet 2/3 of my net worth that this is what happens.
So what do you think, VIX? So I'm gonna go buy some VIX options 2022 right now.
Well, I cannot tell you what to buy or invest in.
I'm just kidding. All right, take care, Coach. Bye.
Take it easy, man. All the best. Hey, Split, how's it going? Oh, you're muted, or did I mute you? I'm muted. Oops, wait. There we go. Split, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Very good. Firstly, thank you a lot for having me here.
Yeah, my
I
pleasure.
love your content, and yes. My question is, Coach, is about South America. How do you think China's supremacy and economic growth will affect South America? Because there's plenty of money coming with highways, water, energy, and consulting, where an uncle works, and I'm gonna work there.
What country are you in?
Chinese people consulting.
What country are you in?
Chile.
Oh, okay. Chile has a lot of serious problems right now. You just got rid of the constitution, and you just elected a constitutional convention that's full of leftists who are going to crack down on any kind of capitalism. Okay. And so I think that Chile is going through another one of its leftist phases, and it's going to end as all Chile's leftist phases does, with a military coup. It happened in 73. It happened in 27. It always happens. Anyway, lessons never get learned. Anyway, the point is, I don't think that China going to war with the United States will affect Latin America in any way. It'll still continue, because China still has the same incentive to develop strong relations with Latin America. So they're still going to be doing so. They have, because Latin America has a lot of natural resources that China could use. And it's a great place to park money in terms of getting financial assets and whatnot. So China will continue to invest in Latin America. This coming war between the United States and China will not affect Latin America, apart from the fact of the dollar collapsing in value, which will affect everybody. But in a practical sense, long term, Latin America will be in surprisingly good shape. Okay, because one of the advantages of having a semi-shitty economy like Latin America does is nothing really affects you. You're still going to be equally kind of shitty.
It's actually like the opposite way. We are better in crisis. For example, when the United States was like fucking over in the Great Depression in the 2008, we were in good shape because of copper, and we had no such turmoil.
Yeah, exactly. it's one of the great things about living in a never quite successful economy. Okay, and dude, for the audience, I am Chilean, so I know what I'm talking about. Chile is never like 100% going on all cylinders. It's always kind of like, sixes and sevens, And
Yeah.
so that is that adds to the resilience of the Latin American economy. Okay, so yeah, the only problem that Chile has to worry about is whether they wind up having a full-on leftist constitution with leftist leadership. Then it's fucked. Okay, and it happens every goddamn fucking time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been bellowing down though. Because
but
radical people were putting. Well, last question, Coach.
Sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you, so you think that the future is not that bad here in South America?
Yeah.
Because I'm, part of the more elite class here.
Yeah.
But I'm worried because I want to build my career right now, and it's a field that's very dependent on prestige.
How old are you?
I'm 20.
You're 20. Okay. The smart thing for you to do is to get your degree in Chile, and then go and get a master's overseas in the United States. Okay. And the thing is, see, whatever you study in Chile, because I know the educational system in Chile. See, you get a 5-year degree in Chile, right?
Yeah.
And see, in terms of your actual education, it's like getting a master's anywhere else. So you go and get a master's anywhere else, you're going to get fantastic grades. It'll be fucking easy. Okay. Every fucking motherfucker who I know who did ingeniería comercial in La Católica, La Católica, they all get their degrees in ingeniería comercial, in economía, ingeniería comercial, right? And they all go to like fucking Harvard to get their MBA or their MS in economics, right? And they get straight A's. They hardly go to class, and their teachers at Harvard think that they're fuking geniuses, and it's not. They already saw that shit, okay? Yeah, because because what happens is that the degree in Chile is in terms of accreditation is the equivalent of a bachelor's, but in terms of what you actually learn, it's closer to second-year PhD student. You are overeducated in these places, and so when you get the master's overseas, you do very well. And so what you do is you get the master's overseas. It's easy to get it. You don't have to work that hard. And what you concentrate on is polishing your English, polishing your culture, traveling around, seeing it really well, and building contacts, not just with other students, but also with professors, and also to every, conference or whatever the fuck. You go to every single one of those fucking things, and you meet every invited guest speaker, no matter who it might be. You get their names and contact information, and you network like a son of a bitch. That's what you do. Because what are you studying, by the way?
Engineering, La Católica.
Okay, so see, that's what you do. That's what you do. And dude, I'm telling you, you'll come back and you'll have a boatload of contacts overseas, and you'll do very well in Chile. And you'll get hired by a good firm, like a good bank, and you'll do aces. That's my suggestion. You take it easy, man. Good luck with it.
Good luck, Coach. Thank you.
No problem. Hey, Jacob, and this is the last person here.
Hey, Coach. Just really quick, man. I have 2 questions for you. I'll let you go. First question: what do you think of all these libertarian types that, oh, Coach, we can't cut off trade with China. It's good. It's our higher standard of living. We got to trade. There's no choice because standard of living. What do you think of these idiots empowering our enemies?
It's not that they're empowering the enemy, okay? It's not that they're consciously trying to betray anything, okay? They're just naive, okay? You don't have to look at these people, as traitorous or stupid. It's just that they're naive and ignorant. You'll find most of the time that people have really foolish ideas, not because they're mean and not even because they're stupid. It's because they're ignorant, because they haven't looked around enough, okay? And it is a mistake to think that somebody is evil or stupid. I mean, there are evil and stupid people. I mean, like really evil and really stupid. And a lot of them appear in positions of leadership. And like, for instance, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, she's flat out stupid. She's just a fucking dumb person, okay? And there are some other people in political leadership in the United States who are fucking evil. Kind of like Nancy Pelosi. The woman is a scumbag. She is as corrupt as can be. She is corrupt. She is a corrupt politician who has made tons of money I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars from her position as a senior congresswoman and now Speaker of the House of Representatives. This is insider trading. It's corruption. Simple as that. Okay, and I mean, like 30 years ago, okay, nobody would have batted an eye about saying, you know, we should get rid of Pelosi and arrest her and have her tried for corruption, because that's what she's been doing, right? But anyway, the point, you got to understand that most people that you meet, okay, the normies in your life, it's not that they're evil, it's not that they're stupid, they're just ignorant, and they haven't thought through the position enough. And if you call them evil or stupid, you're falling for the same trap, okay? You're not looking at it from their perspective. I've done videos on my free channel, many of them, of saying that you should always pay attention to the point of view of the person in front of you. You're talking to somebody, and you should try to look at the reality from their point of view and to see, does their point of view have a validity, or is their point of view limited and they don't realize extra information that you possess that, if they were aware of it, would make them change their minds? See, if you look at it from that perspective, number one, your blood pressure is not going to go sky high all the time. And number two, you'll be able to convince them. Because a lot of times when you put yourself in the shoes of the other and realize how they're looking at the world, you're able to approach them in a way that convinces them and gets them on your side. See, that's my thinking.
Yeah, I like that. And the second question I had for you, this ties in almost perfectly, is what do you think of what are we going to do with all these celebrities who, you know, kiss China's feet, and all these celebrities that virtue signal, like, you know, the Oprahs, the LeBrons, that they were just so oppressed and China's so good and the United States is so bad. What do you think we're going to do with all these celebrities? I forget the John. I forget do
you know? Yeah, I know. Do you know do you know where the word Quisling comes from?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Quisling was the name of a Norwegian, I believe, a Norwegian guy who you know, helped the Nazis when the Nazis invaded Norway, and his name has become synonym with traitor. Okay, and I think he was persecuted. Actually, I don't remember what happened to him, but anyway, what happens to Quislings, what happens to people who betray their country, is that they're persecuted, and that's what's going to happen.
Good.
And then, and the people who are the biggest suck ups, the most who were on side with the Chinese after the loss to the Chinese in a war, well, those people are going to be persecuted. Okay, and they're going to be persecuted relentlessly. I mean, their careers are going to be over. Like this John Cena guy. I mean, he was only mocked because of his stupid message in Mandarin, right? Yeah. Apologizing and whatnot. Well, what's going to happen to a guy like that in that same situation is that it's not that he'd be, you know, mocked. He'd be persecuted. And of course, there's going to be some crazy person who's going to try to kill him, literally. Okay? And that's fucking wrong. I mean, dude, it's murder. Murdering some guy just because he's a fucking idiot. No, that's unjustified. Okay? But that's going to happen. There's going to be all kinds of persecution. And that's why I meant when I said before that a lot of East Asians and a lot of Jewish people would be persecuted in the United States, because there will be the perception that they were not on America's team. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen. Whether it's fair or not, it's irrelevant. See? I mean, persecution, mob persecution, by definition is unfair. You know, the mob doesn't persecute just the bad guys. It persecutes anybody that more or less fits the description of the group of people that they're supposed to hate. Okay? And that's why mob rule is a disaster. And that's why so many sensible people today are so against cancel culture, because cancel culture just goes off after everybody indiscriminately. You know, just to feel good, you know, this is bad. But, you know, and so that's why, and like I said in the presentation, my fear is that the comfort with which so many people have insofar as cancel culture will translate very quickly to a persecution culture, of a hysteria about Chinese nationals in the United States and Jewish nationals in the United States, and the sense that they are betrayers, quislings, like all the people who suck the cock of the Chinese in the entertainment business, all those people, LeBron James, John Cena, all those people, and they'll get it. and they'll get persecuted, and it'll be ugly, really fucking ugly. I mean, I'm not talking about like merely, mocking them and deplatforming. No, I'm talking about potentially physically harming them, which I think could easily happen. It has happened before. This is the final note I want to leave you with,
Sure.
Jacob, and you, the audience. You got to understand that, see, I'm not a particularly smart guy, okay? And you might have listened to this presentation and thought, wow, that's really insightful. Yeah, well, see, motherfucker, I stole all of my insights from history. See, I read a lot of history, and history always repeats itself. Nothing new happens. It just happens in different combinations. You got to understand that, okay?
Mhm.
I'm not insightful. I'm not particularly smart. I just read a lot of history, and I figured, hey, this happened back in, like, I don't know, 1814. Maybe it'll happen this time too. And everybody thinks I'm a fucking genius. I'm not. I mean, I just really want to make it clear. And so this kind of persecution that I'm discussing, which is ugly, and it's never happened in the United States before. You're right. It's never happened in the United States before, but it's happened in other countries that have lost major wars, other great powers that have lost major wars. And because it's happened in those countries, there's no reason to believe that it won't happen in the United States if it loses a major war with China. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Love it, Coach. Love it, man.
So anyway, Jacob, I'm gonna boot you, and I'm gonna go and get some dinner because it's fucking 9:30.
Hey, I hope you're feeling better, Coach. I wanted to throw
thank
that
you.
in there too. Like, your sickness. Hey, you've been a content creating machine these last few days. Like, there's been a lot of content you put on Patreon. So
I didn't have anything better to do, and I wanted to catch up real quick because I let you guys down because I was under the weather, and you guys have been really, really patient. And thank you, Jacob, very much for your very kind words. I really very much appreciate it. And to everybody who left such nice comments, I've so much appreciated. Yeah. So anyway, Jacob, I'm going to kick
have a good
you
day,
out.
Coach.
Take it easy,
Enjoy your
man.
dinner.
And I'm going to leave a final few words, okay? Remember, this presentation is just what I think. What is important is not that you agree with me, okay? What's important is that you figure out why you agree with me and where you disagree with me and why you disagree with me, okay? It's much more important for you to figure out your own point of view. You can think that I'm completely wrong, and that's perfectly fine so long as you have good reasons. See, if you have good reasons to completely disagree with me, I will respect you. If you just say, oh, the coach said so, so it must be true, then I'll think you're a fucking idiot. Yeah, you'll be on my team. You'll agree with everything I said, but who needs that shit? Okay, you certainly don't. And the whole point of these webinars and the videos that I produce is to get you to think for yourself. So I will always respect you more if you disagree with me for good reasons than if you blindly agree with me just because I said so. Because, dude, I'm fucking wrong all the fucking time, and you guys know it. Okay? Okay. All the best, and I will catch you next time.